Chapter 580. A new string was attached to the broken kite, and it flew into the blue sky again with the help of the breeze. Looking at the stall owner, who was smiling apologetically, Ray Minkai waved his hand and let him leave. "Why did you let him go?" "It was because of his string that the kite was almost blown away." Someone expressed extreme dissatisfaction with this. "That's only a small probability of happening. There's no need to make things difficult for him. Look, isn't other people's kites fine? Besides, your kite wasn't blown away, and you've also changed a new string. That's enough." Ray Minkai turned around and looked at the unhappy youth who had the shadow of the Chinibu that Ray Minkai was familiar with, but was used as a tool by the people around him. Real flying bird. After Ray Minkai snatched the kite that was about to be blown away, he had already learned the other party's identity from the way the brother and sister addressed each other. That young face, that doting gaze. All of them were telling Ray Minkai that the world was unpredictable, and fate would always play a little joke on you when you least expect it. Ray Minkai didn't expect that he would meet Real Flying Bird in such a way. The youth, Real Flying Bird's mouth twitched, as if he was still a little dissatisfied, but when he turned around and saw his sister happily flying the kite with Lakis, he gave up the idea of pursuing the matter. "Thank you." Real Flying Bird put aside his dissatisfaction with the poor quality of the kite in his heart and solemnly thanked Ray Minkai. "No, it's just a piece of cake." Ray Minkai smiled and didn't think much of the attack just now. This was just a coincidence. Under Sasaka's lead, Ray Minkai and Lakis, who came here, saw the brother and sister whose kite was blown away by a sudden strong wind. So, this was just a coincidence. "No. If it wasn't for your help, I'm afraid Mayo would be crying." As the youth thanked him, he didn't forget to look at his sister, afraid that the same thing would happen to his sister who was happily flying the kite again. "Don't worry. He's fine now." Yes. This chance encounter didn't make Ray Minkai and Lakis stay in the plaza for long. The moment the sun sank into the horizon, Sasaka walked over and signaled to Ray Minkai and Lakis that it was time. A very beautiful big sister, yes, and a very handsome big brother, right? Big brother, Mayo Flying Bird, who had a star hair clip given by Lux in her hair, gently hugged her kite as she watched Ray Minkai and Lux leave. Yes, but why's that big brother wearing a mask? Real Flying Bird had always been troubled by one thing. Why would a perfectly normal person wear a mask? How strange. Is it strange? I think Big Brother is very handsome. Don't you think? Mayo Flying Bird smiled. Suddenly, she saw Lakis standing at the entrance of the plaza and waving goodbye to the siblings. She immediately stood on her tiptoes and waved her right hand vigorously. Although Ray Minkai and Lakis had only interacted with the siblings for a short time, the young Mayo had already fallen in love with the surprisingly amiable Lakis and Ray Minkai, who had saved her kite. "Big brother, they're gone. Will we meet again?" The car carrying Ray Minkai and Lakis slowly drove away. Mayo seemed a little reluctant to part with them. "Probably," Real Flying Bird replied absent-mindedly. Although Mayo didn't recognize it, Real Flying Bird recognized that the uniform Sasaka was wearing was the military uniform used by the Ob Defense Force. "Is that so? That's great. When the time comes, I want to give Big Sister a gift. Mommy said that when someone gives you a gift, you have to give them a gift in return." The little girl didn't think that deeply. She only knew that if she had the chance to meet Lakis again, she would happily drag her brother home to prepare a gift in return. Night gradually fell. Ray Minkai and Lakis returned to the embassy, changed into formal attire, and boarded the car to Sahak's house again. This was the bridge car prepared by the Scandinavian embassy for Ray Minkai and Lakis. Safety was guaranteed. Moreover, after the White Cat's inspection of State Zero, the conversation between Ray Minkai and Lakis was guaranteed not to be eavesdropped. "Kai, this country isn't as neutral as it seems," Lakis said faintly as she looked at the street lights that had already lit up outside the window in the starry night sky. "Are you referring to the Sahak family?" Combining what he saw and heard during the day, Ray Minkai already knew what Lakis was thinking. Yes. Lakis sorted out her thoughts and continued. "You're right. The assault on Gout, and even the other four Gouda, and the Archangel were all built on Ob's colonial satellite. I thought that Ob was neutral on the surface, but in fact, they were colluding with Earth in the name of neutrality. But after today, I realized that there isn't only one voice inside Ob. After a pause, Lakis withdrew her gaze from the street lights outside the window and looked at Ray Minkai. Sahak? No, probably not only the Sahak family. In the country of Ob, there are leaders in different industries. I'm afraid that they won't be on the same side as the Lion of Ob, Jimmy Narashar. Just like the Supreme Council. No, it's different from the Supreme Council. It's just a disagreement between Father and Uncle Sarab. Lakis shook her head and spoke softly. As the only heir of the Klein family, even if Lakis didn't participate too much or even interfere with Siegel Klein's affairs, she would still know some things. And here, the many families that form this neutral country of Ob seem to have their own schemes and are secretly scheming. Sahak, this family that owned the Dawn Society, had a good relationship with the Eurasian Federation behind the scenes. One had an appropriate and polite smile, while the other was expressionless, but Ray Minkai could still feel the arrogance that had not disappeared. Welcome, esteemed guests. Please, dinner is ready. Let's enjoy the meal first. Lund minus Sahak spoke in a loud voice of welcome and leaned forward in invitation. Ray Minkai and Lakis nodded, accepting the invitation gladly. However, the former looked left and right and realized that someone was missing. If Miss Britannia wants to find Paul Jewell and the rest, I'm afraid you'll be disappointed. Half an hour ago, the Dawn Society sent a notice that the new mothership modified for the recycling house has been taken offline. Right now, Mr. Paul Jewell and the rest should be on their way to the Dawn Society. Lun Mina Sahak saw Ray Minkai's gaze and took the initiative to explain. A new mothership? Was it new home? The new mothership controlled by the thinking AI of the first regulator? Ray Minkai's eyes, hidden under the mask, narrowed slightly. He had really picked the best time to do so. The new mothership was real, but such an ingenious timing. It was probably Lun Mina Sahak's doing in the dark. Is that so? If that's the case, Law will probably be very happy. After all, the recycling house's mothership was scrapped to save the Red Heretic. There was a sting in his words. The moment Ray Minkai said this, Lun Mina Sahak's cold expression suddenly changed, but he was quickly stopped by Lun Mina Sahak. Mina, Father seems to have a mission for you. Why don't you go first? Mina, let's go. Lun Mina Sahak did not allow Lun Mina Sahak to refuse and stopped him on the spot, forcing Lun Mina Sahak to retreat. Before leaving, Lund Mina Sahak's indignant gaze seemed to be directed fiercely at Ray Minkai, as if he wanted to tear a few holes in his body. My apologies. I made a fool of myself in front of you. Please come with me. Lun Mina Sahak's etiquette was very good. Even if something as unpleasant as Lun Mina Sahak had happened, Lun Mina Sahak's attitude and etiquette could erase the unpleasantness. The dinner was sumptuous, but Ray Minkai and Lakis were not in the mood to enjoy the luxurious dinner in front of them. Instead, they were waiting for Lund Mina Sahak's response. Although this was not a Hongman banquet, Lund Mina Sahak's attitude was crucial. The heir of the Sahak family slowly put down the knife and fork in his hand. He gestured for the servant to clear the table, then raised his hand again and pointed at the wine cabinet in the corner of the room. Interested in a drink? There are some things that only taste good when tasting red wine. Lakis frowned slightly and shook her head slightly. My apologies. I'm not an adult yet. As soon as these words came out, Lund Mina Sahak was stunned. Ha ha. My apologies. My apologies. It's my fault. With a self-deprecating laugh, Lund Mina Sahak first expressed his apologies, then looked at Ray Minkai. Your Excellency Britannia, although Her Highness is not an adult yet, you should be able to accompany me for a drink, right? Ray Minkai looked at Lakis. The latter nodded slightly in response. Then, I'll respectfully accept your invitation. After a while, under the servant's movements, the crystal-clear goblets were slowly filled with dark red wine. Then, 2 glasses of red wine were brought to their hands by the servant. It's a pleasure to meet these two esteemed guests. Lun Mina Sahak raised his glass to Ray Minkai. Me too. With a light sip, Lun Mina Sahak's lips were stained with a bright red color, making him look particularly seductive. Thank you for your help today, Your Excellency. If not for Your Excellency, the Dawn Society would have been troubled by the OS program for some time. Lun Mina Sahak's opening was very direct, but he did not allow for any interruptions. I heard a piece of news from certain sources. You're the one who defeated the Desert Tiger? Ha! You do seem to be the case. I presume that Sir Bernard has already met with you? Indeed. I wonder if Miss Lun Mina Sahak has any advice for me? Just call me Mina. In exchange, I'll call you by your name. How about that? Lun Mina Sahak glanced at Lakis, as if observing her reaction to how she addressed Ray Minkai. In the end, Lakis's expression did not change at all. All right, Miss Mina, Sir Bernard only extended an invitation to me. It's not a big deal. It's not a big deal? Ha! Kai, you're really generous. After a pause, Lun Mina Sahak changed the topic. Sir Kai and Miss Audrey's actions here will be fully supported by the Sahak family. As a thank you gift for solving the OS program development for the Dawn Society. Chapter 581. It was nighttime. The sky was full of stars, and the scattered starlight was reflected on the calm sea, connecting the sea and the sky. It gave the humans an illusion that they were among the stars. However, such a beautiful and dreamy scene was destroyed by the sudden appearance of ripples. Woo woo woo. The sound of the engine's high-speed rotation was like a pair of scissors that cut the quiet night sky into pieces. Facing the sea breeze, Ray Minkai's gaze seemed to be able to penetrate the dark night sky and look at the distant horizon, seeing the small island that had become his target. At this moment, Ray Minkai's position was already in a sea area west of Ob. As long as he moved forward a little more, he would be able to get close to the small island. The small island that hid some secrets. Sir, in half an hour, we will enter the sea area of the small island. When the time comes, we will stop the engine and land on the target island by diving. A burly man walked out of the landing ship, facing the sea breeze, and shouted at Ray Minkai, who was standing at the bow of the ship. I will leave everything to you. Ray Minkai did not have much experience in how to sneak into the target island. Fortunately, the Sahak family was really like what Lun Mina Sahak said, fully supporting Ray Minkai's operation this time. Not only did they give Ray Minkai an elite force that was good at sneaking into the island, but they also sent the brand new M1 Heretic that had just been adjusted offline to Ray Minkai. It had to be said that this was exactly what Ray Minkai had in mind. If that island was really the secret base of a librarian, then there must be some kind of heavy firepower in this base. For example, the Xeon that Zaft was currently using, or the heavy weapons in active service of the Earth Alliance. With his brand new M1 Heretic, Ray Minkai was more confident in defeating the enemies on this island without using the White Cat's current pitiful energy. Walla, walla. Under the silent but rhythmic flickering of lights, the elite Aubrey soldiers who had changed into diving suits jumped into the water from the landing craft. At the same time, following them into the water were unmanned submarines developed to assist in the island's infiltration operations. 10 minutes. This was the time given by the leader of the elite troops. Although he was very confident, Ray Minkai did not dare to relax too much. Based on his memories of the librarian, Ray Minkai did not really believe in the Sahak family's ability to keep secrets. Even though Lun Mina Sahak had stated many times that the elite troops she would personally send out were from the Sahak family, or even her own private army, Ray Minkai still chose to make other preparations. Returning to the landing craft, Ray Minkai saw a young man with a blue headscarf and a yellow vest circling the brand new M1 Heresy. Luo, haven't you personally piloted the M1 many times? Ray Minkai walked down the stairs, stood beside the M1 Heretic, and asked Law, who was searching around. Ah, it's you, Kai. Isn't this because this M1 is brand new? I heard that it also uses the OS program you developed. When Law heard Ray Minkai's words, he quickly waved at Ray Minkai. It's true. It's just that Director Simmons seems to have modified some things. Well, it is said that it can improve the flexibility of natural people piloting the M1. It was already expected that the OS program he gave would be modified. Ray Minkai was not too surprised. It was just that Law's reaction was somewhat unexpected. Is that so? I can also experience the OS program you developed. What is different about it? Law's expression was as dejected as a child who lost his toy, which made Ray Minkai smile. If you want to experience it, the OS program used by this M1 heretic was written by me. Really? Law was taken aback, first overjoyed, then confused. If this operation is over, won't it be returned? Law's words made Ray Minkai laugh on the spot. Ha ha ha. Law, you underestimate the Sahak family. This M1 heretic could be said to belong to me. The lady of the Sahak family is not a stingy person. No way. Kai, you're not lying, are you? As a waste collector for a long time, Lon naturally knew the value of MS. Even the brand new MS in the black market of waste collectors has always been priceless and rarely seen in 100 years. Do you think the lady of the Sahak family will be a stingy person who likes to lie? Lunmina Sahak was not that kind of stingy person. Compared with his younger brother, Lunmina Sahak had a more kingly attitude in dealing with people and was more suitable to be the new generation of leader of the country of Obdankari. However, Lunmina Sahak did not agree with the ideals of Nami Nara Ashar and his heir, Kajali. He had always been a bystander, coldly watching as Ob was destroyed, reborn, destroyed, and reborn again under the leadership of two generations of Nami and Kajali. Of course, Law, who didn't know much about Lunmina Sahak, finally just let out a Kai. You're so lucky. It makes me jealous, Sai. In this regard, Ray Minkai just shook his head slightly. In terms of luck, Law's luck was always among the best. Ray Minkai looked up at the electronic clock on the side and looked at Law again. Law, it's getting late. We should strike. Hearing this, Law's face suddenly became dignified. Ray Minkai's other preparation was not only the M1 heresy, but also Law, who was invited by Ray Minkai, appeared in this mission as a reinforcement. 2MS should be able to solve most of the accidents. A few minutes later, Law's speedboat drove out from the landing ship Ray Minkai was on at this time and headed to the rear side, towards another landing ship parked not far away. The red heresy Gauda was there, waiting for the return of its master. M1 heresy start. The moment Ray Minkai pressed the start button, the figure of the white cat state 0 appeared from Ray Minkai's shoulder. Be careful this time. The white cat state 0 seemed a little dignified. Is there a situation? Ray Minkai looked at the white cat state 0, who was usually fearless, in surprise. Yes, that island is emitting an aura that makes me feel sick. It seems that something is disturbing my senses. The white cat state 0 raised its gaze, quickly glanced in the direction of the island, and gently jumped onto the console. Minkai, if there are any accidents, don't hesitate. Immediately summon state 0. Lei Minkai was slightly taken aback, but he still nodded. Okay. 10 minutes passed in the blink of an eye. However, the infiltration team that was sent 10 minutes ago did not seem to have sent back the message of successful landing. This made the person in charge of this team feel a little embarrassed. The agreed time had passed, but the signal of successful landing had not been sent out. He was afraid that, all of a sudden, a star slowly rose from the island. The light it emitted was so bright and dazzling under the night sky. Its appearance made the person in charge even more excited. Your Excellency, the landing operation was successful. Ray Minkai and the white cat state 0 looked at each other, and both of them nodded in unison. Good. Open hatch. M1 heresy attack. Under the night sky, two steel silhouettes soared into the sky, leaving trails of fire behind them. They were like shooting stars in the night sky as they charged towards the island. Woo 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 woo. Ear-piercing sirens constantly ravaged the air in the base buried deep under the island, mercilessly dragging out people who had just fallen asleep from their illusory dreams. Under the flashing red light, the people who were awakened hurriedly put on their clothes and ran quickly in the corridor, returning to their posts as quickly as possible. What happened? The person in charge of this base frowned deeply. According to common sense, although this island was close to Audubon, it was actually located in a very remote sea area. It was unlikely that a cargo ship would pass through here in a year, let alone Audubon's army. The vast Pacific Ocean was enough to accommodate any activities of this country. Therefore, the deserted island that should not have any accidents actually welcomed a shrill alarm that woke everyone up. Report. It's an attack. 5 minutes ago, a group of armed men of unknown origin suddenly landed on our island and quickly began to clear out the open and hidden sentries that we set up. Now, they're fighting with the third team that we sent out. Armed men? Are they pirates? According to the person in charge's understanding of the sea area, if they were really pirates, they would probably be attacked by Audubon's fleet at the first moment. If they were not pirates, then who were the armed men that appeared here? Suddenly, the person in charge had a flash of inspiration. Not good. Quick, send out our MS and quickly search the nearby sea area. They are not armed men, but regular soldiers. Quick. The person in charge's thoughts were in turmoil, and he quickly issued the order to retreat. Inform all departments to organize the information as quickly as possible and prepare to retreat. Regardless of victory or defeat, this base must be abandoned immediately. Yes. The moment the M1 heretics and the Red heretics approached the island, they found the infiltration troops that had set up a temporary position on the top of the pool. As soon as the soldiers who were shaking the light sticks in their hands saw the appearance of the M1 heretics and the Red heretics, they quickly changed the movements of their hands and used the tracks left by the light sticks in the night sky to make signals that represented different meanings. Law, let's go. Let's make a scene. As soon as he saw the light sticks shaking back and forth, Ray Minkai understood the intention of sneaking into the army. Their purpose was to consolidate this temporary position while waiting for the arrival of a new batch of reinforcements. Then, they would immediately launch an infiltration operation on the island, striving to control the island before the enemy made a fierce self-destructive resistance. For this reason, what Ray Minkai and Law had to do now was to make a scene and attract the enemy's attention. Understood. Come on. Before Law's voice fell, the Red heretic took the lead in jumping high from the temporary position and flew toward the depths of the island without fear. Sure enough, compared to the short humans who used the night to hide, the huge and conspicuous painted MS was the most conspicuous target in the night. The Red heretic just jumped high and attracted the hidden turrets hidden around the island. Under the camouflage shell that quickly opened, there were cannons that flashed with cold light. Among these cannons, there were also large-caliber Vulcan cannons mixed among them. Boom, boom, boom. Da-da-da. The sound of the cannons rolled like thunder, and the Red heretic instantly seemed to be in the middle of a death net woven by many cannons and Vulcan cannons. But Law was fearless. Hey, this is interesting. Even though the death net's barrage was indeed terrifying, the Red heretic just squatted a little, raised the shield his left hand in front of him, and successfully blocked the attack. Although some of the cannons would slip through the net, they could not cause significant damage to the Red heretic at all. Law did not even bother to pay attention to them, because even if he took 1 or 2 shots, it did not matter. Da-da-da-da. Beams of light swept past the Red heretic and accurately hit the turrets that were locked onto the Red heretic and launched rounds of barrage attacks, turning them into fireballs. The fire that almost formed a line swept through the forest that was shrouded in the night, turning the Gatling turrets hidden in the forest into a hornet's nest. Boom, boom. When the artillery turrets and the Gatling turrets turned into fireballs that lit up the night sky, Ray Minkai's M1 heretic arrived beside the Red heretic. Law, are you okay? Oh, I'm fine. I've strengthened the Red heretic's shield. This level of attack can't cause any damage to the shield at all. After all, he was a man with strong physical abilities. Ever since he obtained the Red heretic, Law had been modifying it. Ray Minkai casually glanced at the shield in the Red heretic's hand that had not been damaged at all and could not help but laugh bitterly. Indeed, Do it yourself, and you'll have plenty to eat and wear. Rumble. Suddenly, the earth shook. It was as if something had awakened under the island. Da-da-da. Amidst the violent shaking of the earth, 3 flames tore through the darkness and rushed towards the M1 heretics and the red heretic like vipers rushing out of a cave. Be careful. As soon as Rei Mingkai's warning sounded, the M1 heretics and the red heretic immediately jumped high and avoided the attack from the darkness. That's Xeon. Amidst the flames that engulfed the forest, 3 messes that were shrouded in darkness, with only a golden edge on the wrist, appeared in front of Law. No, that's not Zaf's Xeon. It's Xeon that has been artificially modified. Law, we're in big trouble this time. Amidst the rumbling of the earthquake, 2 ghost-like gray figures pierced through the starry sky and looked down at the forest lit up by flames. They were actually Xeon that had just been equipped by Zaft. Chapter 582. The original horn-like head ornament had been removed and replaced with a pair of horns. The armor on the body was mainly painted in black. Under the night sky, the huge horns and the eerie black paint made Rei Mingkai almost unable to recognize it. This was the MS that brought great pressure to the Earth Alliance. Xeon. Is this a brand new creation, or was it recycled and modified? The M1 and Red Heresy stood on the left and right, guarding against the black MS that surrounded them in a triangular formation. At the same time, in the sky, the 2 Deans that were painted in gray, but not much different from the ones in Rei Mingkai and Law's impression, were circling back and forth. However, from the way the 2 Deans gradually expanded their circling range, the Deans that had the advantage in the air would soon discover the landing craft in the nearby sea area. Law, we're in big trouble now. Hee hee. Of course. Law wiped his nose and laughed. Then, the Red Heresy took a big stride forward. With a flash of cold light, the Red Heresy pulled out the special weapon named Kikuakamanji and attacked the Black Xeon that was closest to the Red Heresy like a storm. The M1 Heresy that was half a step behind was naturally unwilling to fall behind. As Rei Mingkai's gaze moved, the M1 Heresy's muzzle was already aimed at the Deans that were circling in the sky and would attack at any time. If he could take advantage of the opportunity when the Red Heretic had attracted the attention of the 3 pitch-black Xeon and quickly get rid of the 2 Xeons, the landing craft that was sending reinforcements to the island would not be in any greater danger. Therefore, the moment the green cross in front of Rei Mingkai's eyes swept across the night sky, it instantly turned into an exceptionally dazzling red as it caught sight of the Deans. The trigger was pulled, and the M1 Heresy's Type 71 beam rifle instantly bloomed with a brilliance that lit up the night sky. In just a moment, from the bottom to the top, the beam that flew across the night sky brushed past the wings of the Deans that were slightly lower in altitude. Although it did not hit the Deans, it was enough to scare the Deans that had just taken a trip to the edge of life and death. Kai, that gray thing wants to run away. When the White Cat Zero saw that the frightened Dean wanted to increase the altitude, it immediately gave a warning. Rei Mingkai pushed with his left hand and stepped on the pedals alternately. The M1 Heretic under his control threw the shield in the direction of the Red Heretic. At this moment, the wind suddenly blew. A second before the whistling sound of the shield being thrown by the M1 Heretic swept over, Law, who seemed to have sensed something, did not hesitate to control the Red Heretic to roll on the ground and make way for it. A shield that could throw out an M1 Heretic would give a Dark Xeon a chance to land a direct critical hit. Boom! Amidst the whistling sound of the shield, the pitch-black Xeon was unable to react in time. Its head monitor was smashed by the shield on the spot. At the same time, the shield's momentum did not stop until it was embedded deeply into the pitch-black Xeon's chest. It only stopped after destroying the Xeon's engine. All of this happened in just a short moment. In the eyes of the remaining 2 pitch-black Xeon, the Xeon that was hit by the shield suddenly collapsed with a loud bang, without any resistance at all. Swoosh! A cold light bloomed in the night sky. bringing the attention of the two pitch-black Zeons back to reality. Don't look around. Now, your opponent is me. The red heretic raised his sword, and the heavy assault machine guns in the hands of the two pitch-black Zeons were broken. Boom! Boom! Two small fireballs exploded in the hands of the pitch-black Zeons. As the two pitch-black Zeons retreated, they had already pulled out their heavy swords from their waists. An MS combat battle, created by the top human technology, was ready to begin. On the other side, the M1 heretic who threw the shield at the red heretic did not pay attention to the results of his casual throw. Instead, after running for a distance, he stepped on the small hill in front of him that seemed to be only about 10 or 20 meters tall. He used all the thrust contained in his backpack to try to rush into the air and attack Dean, who had the air superiority in a shorter and closer distance. Buzz! Buzz! When the M1 heretic rushed into the sky, the Type 71 beam rifle constantly moved its muzzle and fired beams at the location predicted by Ray Minkai. TSK, did he see through my movements? The Dean that was targeted by the M1 heretic quickly changed its flight path and tried its best to pull up, try to escape the pursuit of the M1 heretic that could not fly by flying to a higher altitude. Buzz! However, just as the Dean was pulling up, a beam of light pierced through the air and accurately penetrated the back of the Dean. It melted the entire cockpit and created a huge hole. Then, a small shining sun appeared in the night sky. In less than a few minutes after the battle started, the Dean that had an overwhelming air superiority actually lost one of its Zeons. Looking at the M1 heresy that was pulled back to the ground by gravity, the remaining Deans began to waver. Ignore the MS. Search the nearby waters. Quick! As the order from the base sounded, the remaining Dean made up its mind and quickly turned around to leave. According to the thoughts of the Dean pilot and the base, as long as the Dean began to accelerate, the M1 heretic that could not fly would not be able to catch up with the Dean. Whether it was in fact or in theory, this result was expected. However, reality gave the Dean and the base a hard slap in the face. In front of them was the gradually enlarging sea. Behind them was the gradually abandoned land. However, just as the Dean was about to leave the sky above the island and fly into the sky above the sea, a huge impact suddenly kicked the Dean from the sky. The Dean fell heavily into the desert below, stirring up waves of sand and dust. What's going on? In the base, everyone was dumbfounded when they saw the M1 heretic who had suddenly appeared above Dean on the screen and ruthlessly kicked him down to the beach. Under the night sky, the moment the M1 heretic's hand emitted a blazing light, it drew a straight trajectory in the night sky. From top to bottom, it pierced straight into Dean's body, who was wrapped in billowing sand and dust. The moment the particle beam sword with powerful destructive power pierced through the Dean's armor, it also sent the pilot's life to hell. The sand and dust stopped, and the huge electronic eye of the Dean also slowly dimmed until the power driving the heavy body completely disappeared. Law, I'm done here. What about you? The M1 heretic retracted the beam sword in his hand and looked at the center of the island. Ah, good. You're done here? While the M1 heretic dealt with the two Deans, the red heretic with a large Kikuikamanji was engaged in a cold weapon duel with two black Zeons that were also armed with cold weapons. Although it lacked the heat unique to hot weapons, the killing intent unique to cold weapons was particularly glaring. The Kikuikamanji slashed out a cold light in the air and forced the two black Zeons to retreat. Locke casually said, "Kai, if you're done, come over and help me. These two guys are a bit weird." Weird? Lei Minkai frowned, but he still replied with a single sentence. "Yes, Law, there's a Dean with a melted cockpit here on the beach. You can take it back later. Treat it as a reward for this time." Huh? Dean? As soon as he heard that Ray Minkai was going to give him a Dean, Law almost revealed a flaw and was caught by the black Zons that besieged the red heretic. Yes, Dean. It took a long time to say, but it was done quickly. During the short conversation between Ray Minkai and Law, the M1 heretic that set off again from the beach and rushed to the center of the island had already appeared on the battlefield dominated by cold weapons. Law, do you want another Xeon? What? Laming Kai's words once again made Law stunned for a moment. In the next second, the M1 heretic rushed into the center of the battle from the periphery of the battlefield like lightning. He waved the beam sword in his hand straight toward the left side of the red heretic, trying to take advantage of the opportunity when another black Xeon attracted the red heretic's attention to stab at the black Xeon that attacked violently. The moment the surging beam sword stabbed the back of the black Xeon, countless sparks jumped wildly until the black Xeon was pierced by the beam sword. As a result, the scene of Dean's death reappeared on the body of the black Xeon. After the huge electronic, I flashed rapidly for a while. It fell straight to the ground as its energy source was cut off. Swish! Law swung a sword and cut off the remaining black Xeon's right arm. After kicking it away, Law looked speechlessly at the black Xeon that was pierced through the cockpit by the M1 heretic. Kai, the Dean you mentioned just now was also dealt with by you in this way? Yes. Is there a problem? Ray Minkai nodded matter-of-factly. At the same time, the M1 heretic, under his control, once again burst out with full power to push the backpack. In the blink of an eye, it rushed to the black Xeon that was kicked away by the red heretic. In the next second, a light flashed in the M1 heretic's hand, and the beam sword in his hand pierced the black Xeon again. This time, it was still the cockpit. Looking at the slowly dissipating beam sword in the M1 heretic's hand, Law's eyelids twitched wildly. He didn't expect that there would be someone who could so easily pierce through the cockpits of 3 MSs in a row. On the way, there wasn't even much entanglement. This Law didn't know what to say for a while. Yes, another one. Law, this black Xeon is a new reward. I have a commission for you. A new commission? Reward? Law moved his gaze and looked at the M1 heretic and then at the black Xeon that fell at its feet. He knew that this commission couldn't run away, because the reward was already in front of his eyes. This was an MS that was mostly intact except for the damaged cockpit. Where would he find such a reward? Law paused and said with some speculation, Kai, you want to investigate the situation of these airframes? Yes, but I'll tell you the details later. We still have things to do. Yes, the battle between MSs ended in a short time, but it didn't mean that the island was captured by Ray Minkai and the others. The more critical next step was to break into the underground base and take control of the base before the enemy activated the self-destruction program. When the M1 heretic and the red heretic broke into the underground base along the Dark Xeon and Dean's Passage, gunshots were already loud inside. Explosions and gunshots were continuous. The narrow passage was stained with blood, bullet shells were scattered all over the ground, bullet holes and bullet marks were all over the passage. Obviously, at the same time as the battle between MSs began, there was also a more intense battle here. Boom! A loud noise, a flash of light. It was captured by 2 mechs known as the Heretics. Over there. Kai, do you want to go down? Law looked at the surrounding situation and couldn't help but have an indescribable feeling in his heart. As a recycler, Law has naturally experienced many tragic battlefields. It's just that it's rare for Law to witness the bloody fighting between humans. You stay here. Law, the airframe always needs someone to guard it. Ray Minkai not only understood Law's feelings, but also because of the next action, Ray Minkai didn't want to involve too many people. Okay, leave the airframe to me. Under Law's gaze, Ray Minkai, who walked down from the M1 heretic, quickly rushed into the passage where the explosion came from. Along the way, the tragic scene he saw made Ray Minkai frown. The shell casings and bullet marks that hadn't shrunk told Ray Minkai that the enemies in this base hadn't given up resisting. On the contrary, their resistance was gradually increasing. Suddenly, Ray Minkai stopped in his tracks. In front of him was a soldier wearing a full-body gas mask. Either he was hit by a stray bullet or something unexpected happened. The gas mask, which should have brought a strong protective power to the user, had a huge hole in it. And in this hole, there was a face that made Rei Mingkai's face gradually dignified. What did you find? White Cat State Zero appeared on Rei Mingkai's shoulder, and it also noticed the strangeness of Rei Mingkai. Rei Mingkai first shook his head, then squatted down. After removing the broken gas mask, he carefully observed the face that had turned pale due to death. Then, Rei Mingkai got up again, casually found a corpse nearby that was also wearing a gas mask, and also removed the gas mask. How could it be exactly the same face? White Cat State Zero exclaimed as soon as it saw the same face under the gas mask. Clone? No, it's a clone. Rei Mingkai casually threw away the gas mask in his hand and slightly clenched his teeth. The answer, perhaps, was already clear at this moment. The only person who could obtain the recognition of everyone around, including relatives, in the appearance of a fake, could only be the librarian who could create a clone with the same memory and personality, if there were no other accidents. Chapter 583. The gunshots were still echoing in the tunnel. The bloodiest battle between humans was still going on. However, Rei Mingkai, who had tossed the tattered gas mask aside, had no intention of continuing to chase in the direction where the gunshots came from. State Zero. Let's begin. Didn't you say that there's something here that makes you feel disgusted? White Cat State Zero was silent for a while, but then jumped down from Rei Mingkai's shoulder. The moment it landed, it transformed into a wild lion. However, this wild lion had been adjusted for this narrow passageway. Kai, come up quickly. It's so narrow here, I can't care about the things under my feet. The narrow space made Wild Lion Zero very uncomfortable. The moment Rei Mingkai sat on it, the wild lion turned into a stream of light and rushed into another tunnel. It was only here that the aura that made State White Cat Zero feel disgusted was emitted. Quick, quick, evacuate everyone. The person in charge of this base did not expect that the 3 Dark Xian and 2 Deans deployed in this base would be destroyed by an unknown enemy in such a short time. Even if he had seen the design style of Aubrey's Twilight Society from the familiar body outline of the Red Heretic, he still could not be sure that this sudden attack was launched by Aubrey. If the power of a country was used to attack this desolate and uninhabited island that even cargo ships were not willing to approach, there would definitely be clues before the attack. Especially the body that was very similar to the Red Heretic. The pilot of this body could not be casually found to have such a level of piloting skills. That was a strength that only an ace pilot could possess. Even in the human world, Zaft, who was the first to have an MS, there were not many pilots who could do that. Similar thoughts kept appearing in his mind, but the person in charge of the base did not dare to continue thinking about it. In the absence of information, making a unilateral guess was just a wild guess without any basis. Be careful. All of a sudden, a sharp cry rang out, followed by a loud boom. Boom! The 10-ton steel screen door, which was supposed to have powerful defensive capabilities and could delay the intruder's attack, was sent flying by an unknown existence. In the splashing dust, the heavy steel screen door flew out from people's sight, passed over people's heads, and finally smashed a big hole in the wall behind people, and was firmly embedded in the wall. What is that? The roar of the collision with the wall had not yet dissipated. The people who were dizzy from the roar were shocked by a huge figure standing at the door, looming in the flying dust. Roar! A beast-like roar swept over, and the sound of gunfire suddenly became louder. The soldiers in the base didn't know what kind of monster had sent the heavy steel gate flying, but they knew that if they didn't get rid of this monster, they would be the ones to die in the end. Da-da-da-da! Gunshots rang out as the bullets tore through the smoke and dust in a frenzy, heading straight for the figure of the huge beast hidden behind the smoke and dust. However, it was the sound of bullets bouncing off after hitting the steel. Monster! It's a monster! After emptying a magazine of bullets, the soldiers who didn't see any damage to the enemy retreated in fear. However, these soldiers were still not controlled by fear. They turned around and ran. Instead, they forced themselves to reload the weapons in their hands. Roar! The beast's roar rang out again, but this time, it was an announcement of death. In the sound of gunfire, the steel body, flashing with cold light, leaped up high and rushed into the crowd like a meteor. In an instant, a blood-colored storm swept through the underground space. Monster! He raised his pistol with trembling hands and kept pulling the trigger, shooting bullets at the steel beast that killed the surrounding soldiers in a few ups and downs. This was an attack that was destined to be futile. However, driven by the instinct to survive, whether it was humans or beasts, they would all do the same thing in the face of death. It didn't matter if these actions would allow them to escape. Roar! In the midst of the terrifying roar, the person in charge of the base finally saw the true appearance of the monster that suddenly appeared in front of him. A huge head. His mane was made of steel and looked majestic, but it was also extremely sharp, and a pair of cold eyes that looked at humans as if they were nothing. It was a steel lion whose entire body was made of an unknown metal. Bang! Dang! The last bullet in the pistol was shot by the person in charge of the base, but under his gaze, it was rebounded by the steel lion's armor and plunged into the broken ceiling above his head. Monster! The person in charge of the base still wanted to struggle to reload the magazine, but the steel lion raised its right claw and pressed him to the ground, unable to move at all. Who are you? Who is the person in charge of this base? Under the glowing claws, the person in charge of the base who couldn't move saw a pair of black boots. You? Who are you? The person in charge of the base struggled desperately. Immediately after, a sigh sounded, and a huge force, like the weight of Mount Tai, completely sent the person in charge of the base to the netherworld. Didn't you want to ask for information about this place? The wild lion raised its claws and looked at Ray Minkai. No, there's no need. The owner of this base might already be clear. If it's them, I'm afraid I won't be able to get any information. Then, there's only the last place left. Kai, we have to hurry. That girl's troops are already nearby. Above the scarlet that gradually occupied this underground space was the back of the wild lion rushing into the depths of the base. Darkness. It was that terrifying darkness. She didn't know that she would be born in this world. By the time she gained self-awareness, she was already sitting on a chair surrounded by many unknown equipment. She was being pointed at by many people in white coats, who looked at her wantonly and said things that she did not understand. Who are they? She instinctively thought of such a question, and she followed her instincts to cast an inquiring gaze at the people around her, but she was frightened away by pairs of cold, even disgusted eyes. Under the gaze of these eyes, she was like a puppet being controlled to move back and forth between the many equipment. Sit down, lie down, who was she? Where was this place? And those people, who were they? As long as these questions were asked, there might be an answer. However, every time she saw those white coats, those pairs of cold eyes filled with disgust blocked the questions she wanted to ask again and again. Mental state is good. It's just that the growth rate is lower than expected. Is the biological cell growth not stimulated enough? It's possible. One day, as usual, sitting on a chair surrounded by many equipment, she suddenly heard this conversation that she didn't understand. And then, it was hell. Pain, the pain of tearing the body apart, the storm of pain that swept through the brain, and the screams that begged but couldn't get mercy became her new memory. A brand new, but incomparably painful memory. I can't take it anymore. The growth index of this test subject is far from the requirements of Miss E. Abandon it. In the midst of the pain, she seemed to hear the words that determined her fate. It's too early to abandon it now. Although the growth index of this test subject is far lower than the other test subjects, the other indicators are in the front. A rebuttal sounded. She tried hard to open her eyes and look at the direction of the argument. So what? The test subjects that Miss E want are test subjects that are roughly the same age as the target. Other than that, the requirements for us won't be too high. But it's very rare to see a test subject with such good parameters. We can send out the test subjects that meet the requirements of Miss E. We can keep them and continue the research. Silence followed, leaving only the pain of tearing her body to accompany her, until an unknown amount of time passed. Just as she was about to faint, the sound rang out again. All right, Keep this test subject. The rest of the test subjects will be destroyed when they meet the requirements of Miss E. What we need are warriors, not a girl who bewitches people. When she woke up again, she had already been sent back to the same narrow room surrounded by iron plates. Time passed bit by bit. Other than the food that was delivered on time, she did not see the group of people in white coats again. Da-da-da-da. During the long wait, a hurried sound with a trace of fear tore through the air above the iron cage that imprisoned her. She did not know what the sound was. The only thing she knew was the screams from outside, the panic cries, and the heavy sounds that rose and fell one after another. Boom! Boom! A heavy sound rang out, and it kept approaching the small iron cage. At this moment, she could only cower in the corner of this room that was surrounded by iron plates. Facing this unfamiliar yet terrifying heavy sound, she could only cower in the corner of this room. She looked at the iron door that had not been opened for a long time with a gaze that seemed to be filled with fear and hope. Creak! An ear-piercing sound of friction rang out. It was the iron door. Something was doing something to the iron door. Boom! Under her gaze, after the ear-piercing sound of friction, the iron door fell down. In the dust raised by the heavy iron door falling to the ground, a pair of black boots slowly stepped into the room that had imprisoned her for a long time. She, who was cowering in the corner of the room, subconsciously looked up along the pair of black boots. She saw a mask. It was a white mask. "You're safe now. Come home with me." Perhaps, in her heart, he had already become a ray of light that illuminated the darkness. The darkness was constantly tumbling. The curses that once resounded in her ears were like rolling thunder that constantly attacked Kira's hearing. Damn adjuster. Go to hell. Why is the adjuster smarter? Stronger? Why? The adjuster is a devil that destroys the world. The adjuster is evil, an existence that must be erased. The curses rang again and again. The curses that once hovered back and forth in Kira's ears were like ghosts that did not leave for a long time. At the same time, in the darkness, the faces that flickered with disgust, hatred, and even the urge to kill Kira on the spot appeared one after another when he was under house arrest in the Earth United headquarters. Why? This question had long appeared in Kira's mind, but she could not get the answer. This was because Kira, who had once asked this question, had been treated horribly. Although the other party was very apprehensive about injuring Kira's hands, it didn't mean that they didn't have other methods to teach Kira a lesson. They wanted Kira Yamato, the regulator, to clearly understand his situation and his self-awareness as a regulator. When the painful and terrible memory of the past emerged from the darkness, Kira suddenly felt that the heart-wrenching pain did not leave at all. Instead, it took root, sprouted, and grew deeply in her body until Kira was ruled by this pain. No. Why? Why? Why you treat me like this? Chapter 584. The first rays of dawn approached quietly, scattering the light from the sun on the surface of the sea, as well as expelling the darkness of the past. Under the gradually brightening sky, Lakis sat quietly on a chair, facing the morning breeze that blew in from the window. She lowered her head and looked at the little face that had fallen into a deep sleep. That pink, messy hair that resembled a bird's nest. That haggard, thin, and frail little face. It was almost identical to the face that Lakis had seen countless times in the mirror. Yes, that was her own face when she was 12 years old. Lakis' gaze gradually wavered. She subconsciously reached out her right hand, attempting to touch the face that was once so familiar, yet so real. But before she could touch the haggard little face, she was startled by a knock on the door. "It's me. Kai. Audrey, are you still awake?" Lakis' gaze wavered a few times, but she still slowly retracted her hand, stood up, and opened the door for Ray Minkai. "I'm still awake. Kai, you haven't rested yet? I heard from Luo that the two of you seem to have gone through a battle." Lakis looked at Ray Minkai, who had a hint of fatigue on his face, and could not help but ask. Ray Minkai shook his head slightly and glanced at Lakis, who also had a tired look. No, that's not important. When I was training the military academy, this was just a small matter. But I'm a little worried about you. Me? Lakis was stunned for a moment, but she immediately understood. Are you afraid that I'll be affected? Before Ray Minkai could answer, Lakis continued. Actually, when we were in Scandinavia, I suspected that you were hiding something from me. Is this what you're hiding from me? Lakis' intuition was undoubtedly sharp. Yes and no. Ray Minkai did not deny it, but he did not admit it either. I'm just worried about you. Worried about me? When Lakis heard Ray Minkai's words, she immediately revealed a helpless, almost bitter smile. Yes, no matter who it is, when they learn that multiple clones of themselves have been cloned without their knowledge, I'm afraid it won't be as simple as a scream, right? But you looked at her calmly and accepted her. After Ray Minkai personally sent her back to her and confessed some things, Lakis calmly accepted her and gave up her room to let her rest. Lakis opened her mouth, but she didn't know how to explain the situation. I just don't want her to sleep in the living room like this. Moreover, judging from the wounds on her body, she must have been tortured, right? Ray Minkai's gaze went past Lux and landed on the bed that was gradually being bathed in the morning light. She's just one of the many clones. Other than her, there was only one Kuno, the imprinted man, who was still alive. The rest had probably been destroyed. When we attacked that island, the only thing we could save was her and some information. Ray Minkai retracted his gaze from the bed and made eye contact with Lakis. Among the information, I found traces of another her being sent to plant. Another her? Is the truth unfolding just like that? Lakis didn't expect that the Silver Wind incident was actually planned by another her and the mastermind behind the creation of her. Then my name, my identity, my family, and my father were all taken by another me. As Lakis's voice was filled with grief and indignation, light flowed, and her pink hair fluttered in the wind at the moment the sun rose from the east. The true face of Lakis Klein was gradually occupied by grief and indignation. Her pure and flawless eyes were also occupied by a light that was unclear whether it was hatred or not. Just like that, without my knowledge, I was cloned and made into countless copies of myself. Then they took my name, my voice, my identity, my family. Is my father dead? Ray Minkai was speechless under Lakis's grief and indignation. He didn't know what to say or how to comfort her. In the course of history, Lakis Klein was bound to meet the girl who disguised herself as her through superb plastic surgery. But at that time, Lakis Klein had already experienced the destruction of her family due to her father's death. She was the Lakis Klein who had grown up after the First Great War. Now, the Lakis Klein standing in front of him was a girl who hadn't experienced most of the events in the original course of history. Furthermore, the early arrival of her was a heavy blow to this Lakis Klein who had yet to grow up. Ray Minkai's silence made Lakis smile sadly. As her skirt fluttered, Lakis took a few steps back and returned to the bedside. She lowered her head to look at the sleeping her. I don't know what to do. Kay. Lakis gradually lowered her body and slowly reached out her hand to touch the thin and frail face that was almost identical to hers. She's probably Lux Klein. Looking at this face that I've seen countless times in the mirror, I can't help but have this thought. No. Ray Minkai's footsteps gradually sounded. He came to Lux's side and lowered his gaze to look at Lux's face that was almost identical to her. I know. The real Lakis Klein isn't in plant, but here beside me, in front of me. With that said, Ray Minkai looked at her thin face, then looked up at the sky that was about to be occupied by light, and looked at the sky where the funnel-shaped colonial satellite that was considered ominous by the Earth Alliance was located. She and the her in plant are just clones of Lakis Klein. No. Lakis shook her head. They aren't clones. Lakis put down her hand, turned back to look at Ray Minkai, and smiled gently. They aren't clones, nor are they anyone's props. They're just a life that was unlucky enough to be born in this world. That's all. Kay. Lakis. Lakis' words shocked Ray Minkai. He never thought that Lux would say something like that. With these words, Ray Minkai had already guessed how Lakis would treat her, as well as the her in the sky who had taken the name Lakis Klein. "Okay, let me bring her back." Lakis composed herself, stood up, looked at Ray Minkai, and softly made this request. "Aren't you afraid of causing unnecessary trouble?" The appearance of her had already made Lund Mina Sahak suspicious. Ray Minkai had reason to believe that the special forces that participated in the attack on the island would definitely report to Lund Mina Sahak after the mission ended. "No, that won't happen. K. I believe that Lund Mina Sahak will make the right choice." Moreover, Lakis' gaze once again fell on the thin and frail face. Ray Minkai knew what she meant very well. At the end of the attack on the island, the special forces had indeed brought back some information and evidence. Under the influence of the information and evidence, Lund Mina Sahak would probably fall into a state of paranoia. Just imagine, unknowingly, the people around her were secretly swapped out by an imprint controlled by an unknown faction. Even she herself could be swapped out and replaced with someone who knew nothing about the imprint and still believed herself to be the true self. What kind of terrifying scene would that be? Lakis, that's her name. As the morning sun shone on that thin face, Lux gently caressed her and softly gave her a name that belonged to her. "Welcome, sir. My sister." "Harrow, Harrow, Harrow." The familiar voice came from afar. Kira, who had yet to get out of bed, knew that this was the signal that the noisy Harrow was about to arrive. Moreover, accompanying the noisy Harrow was a young girl who looked like an angel descending to the mortal world. Her name was Lakis Klein, a young girl with a voice like the sound of nature. Every time she softly sang, Kira would always feel as if she had come to a pure, undisturbed, and harmless heaven. She was deeply captivated by her voice. Lakis Klein, she was a beautiful and pure angel. It was just that she had a fiancé, and that fiancé was actually a friend that Kira had met when they were young and then separated. After a long period of time, they met again by chance, Aslan Sarah. Under this relationship, Kira hesitated and shrank back. But fortunately, Kira was still in a heavily injured state. That cowering appearance only made the angel-like young girl misunderstand that it was because she was afraid of pulling on her wound. This misunderstanding made Kira heave a sigh of relief, but also made Kira's heart gradually fill with a pent-up anger that was difficult to relieve. "You're awake. Kira, come. This is today's breakfast." When she pushed a small dining cart and appeared from the side path, she looked at Kira, who was already able to sit alone on the bed, in pleasant surprise. Thank you, Miss Lakis." Kira slightly raised her gaze and glanced at her pleasantly surprised face. Then, she quickly lowered her gaze, afraid that the angel-like young girl in front of her would see through her. "That's not right. Kira, my name is Lakis Klein. I'm not some Miss Lakis. You could just call me by my name." She pushed the dining car to the side of the bed and said somewhat angrily. At the same time, the Herods, who had been following her movements, began to clamor even louder. "Harrow, apologize. Harrow, apologize." Perhaps it was because she was afraid that she would be angered, or perhaps the noisy Harrow scared Kira. Kira hurriedly lowered her head and wanted to apologize. But unexpectedly, due to her sudden movement, she accidentally lost her balance and fell straight to the floor. "Aya, be careful." The floor was right in front of her, but Kira, who couldn't exert much strength due to her injuries, was about to fall heavily to the ground when she was saved by a gentle embrace. "Aya, be careful. Kira, your injuries haven't healed yet. Are you hurt anywhere?" The fragrance that gradually calmed Kira's impetuous heart. The voice that gradually calmed Kira, who fell into a dilemma due to her identity, became Kira's comfort at this moment. "Thank you. I'm fine. Lakis, can you help me back to the bed?" Kira seemed to be trying hard to calm her heart. After taking a few deep breaths, she said in a seemingly calm manner, Okay. Please be more careful. Please tell me immediately if you feel uncomfortable anywhere. I'll get the doctor to come right away." She gently helped Kira back to the bed and gently smoothed the messy quilt for her. Looking at her gentle and moving appearance, Kira gradually became a little dazed. But Kira forced herself to stay awake. Right. What's breakfast today? I'm a little hungry. Allah, are you hungry? Kira, it just so happens that Miranda personally made some snacks in the morning. You could try. Looking at the girl who took out the dazzling snacks from the dining cart, as if she was presenting a treasure, a gentle smile gradually appeared on Kira's face. However, this scene was seen by someone standing in the villa next to them. Test subject LH033's movement data is normal. It basically matches the gene provider's original life path, movement path, and even the fluctuations of her thoughts are almost the same. At the same time, in the gene provider's field of expertise, she also displayed the same high level of talent. In yesterday's experimental performance, the 853 audience members present did not discover any abnormalities. They were all mesmerized by the singing of test subject LH033. Combining the results of many days of observation data, LH033 has already reached the standard required by mice, and even slightly surpassed the gene provider in the field of singing. Mia stood by the window and looked down at the room that was made of high-strength transparent glass on all four sides as she listened to the continuous data reports and the results of various observations. The man and woman inside were so harmonious, so friendly. But it was also because of this that Mia's hand on the window gradually tightened. So, when Aslan was not paying attention, you betrayed Aslan like this. Lakis Klein. Pa! Under the gaze of the experimenters around her, the edge of the window frame, made of ironwood, was forcibly crushed by Mia. The observation ends here. Let LH033 begin the plan. From now on, her name is Lakis Klein. Chapter 585. This was already the 7th day since the Scandinavian diplomatic group arrived in Ob. During these 7 days, it was inevitable that the people of Abush would become interested in this country that was also in a neutral position. As a result, most of the attention from the outside world was attracted by the Scandinavian diplomatic team, from the official media or from the private media. In this week, they continuously reported on all kinds of news from Scandinavia, allowing most of the people of Ob to have a rough understanding of this country. However, this was only limited to the people. At the level of Ob's leader, there were other thoughts. Zisaka, how are the 2 guests doing recently? Rumi stood by the window, looking at the lawn below. A banquet in the park was being held there for the diplomatic group. The one in charge of hosting the banquet was none other than Rumi's daughter, Karjali Yura Ashar. Although Karjali was usually carefree and did not have the demeanor of a lady from a prestigious family, at today's banquet, she still managed to achieve the lowest standard of a lady from a prestigious family. This also made Rumi secretly relieved. Zasaka, who stood behind Rumi, naturally felt Rumi's helplessness towards his daughter, but he did not say anything and did not focus on it. Instead, he slightly lowered his head and answered Rumi's question. Sir Kevin and Miss Audrey are still staying in the embassy and rarely go out. Is that so? It seems that a few nights ago, at the banquet hosted by Sahak's eldest daughter, something did happen. No matter if it is our guests or Sahak's eldest daughter, they seem to have fallen into a busy state that we cannot understand. In the eyes of others, under Rumi's leadership, Ob was a country where everyone was of one mind. But in reality, Rumi knew that at least among the many representatives of Ob, there were at least people who had conflicting ideals with him. For example, Sahak family. The corner of Zasaka's mouth twitched. Without thinking, he spoke of the findings of the intelligence personnel he sent out recently. Sir Rumi, in a certain sea area west of Ob, a battle that we did not discover destroyed half of a deserted island. Oh, west of Ob? Rumi narrowed his eyes slightly and then nodded. Let's stop here. That was merely a battle to exterminate pirates. Zasaka. After the banquet ended, an invitation was sent out separately. In my own name, I would like to invite Her Excellency Kai Brittany and Miss Audrey Summers to our family dinner. Sasaka was taken aback, but he still replied, Yes, I'll do it right now. As Sasaka left, Tammy looked at the park and Carrie, who was hosting the banquet, and sighed inwardly. The invitation sent out in Himi's name was quickly delivered to Rei Minkai and Lakis under Sasaka's personal efforts. At this moment, it had been almost 4 days since Rei Minkai and Lakis had left the embassy. Long time no see. Sasaka, this is... Rei Minkai raised the red invitation card in his hand and looked at Sasaka. This is an invitation sent by Lord Simi in his own name. You can accept it or not according to your own opinions. Sasaka said expressionlessly. This was not a problem with Sasaka's attitude. However, this Ming Nin always had this cold look on his face. Is that so? Rei Minkai looked at Lakis to see what she thought. We'll be there on time. Thank you very much for Prime Minister Simi's invitation. Lakis did not hesitate and immediately accepted the invitation. Then, Sasaka left the embassy with the answer that Rei Minkai and Lakis were going to be there. Rei Minkai and Lakis stood on the balcony for a long time as they watched Sasaka leave, watching the cars passing by. It seems like Prime Minister Simi has discovered Klaya's existence. Lakis looked at the cars that disappeared at the end of the road and sighed faintly. Perhaps this was inevitable. Even if the Sahak family did not get along with Simi, he was still the prime minister of a country. Even if it was a battle within the country's borders, the military loyal to Simi would still discover some clues. After all, it was not a small skirmish between groups of soldiers, but a battle between as many as 7 MS fighters. That kind of commotion was not something that could be easily concealed. Moreover, as one of the parties involved in the battle, the Sahak family might not have the intention to hide anything. Prime Minister Simi's target might not be Klaya. To this country, Klaya's existence is just a civilian with a tragic experience. Rei Minkai combined his memories of Simi Nala Ashar with what he had seen and heard during this period of time and came to a conclusion. It's not Klaya? Then could it be Earth United? Ever since she came into contact with Lund Mina Sahak, Lakis knew that this country that adhered to the official neutral ideology on the surface was not united internally. Moreover, the seemingly beautiful concept of neutrality was not as beautiful as ordinary people imagined. Even in this country that claimed to be able to create a beautiful environment for adjusters and naturals to live and work together, adjusters still lived cautiously, afraid of being discovered by others. Of course, this was under the condition that they deliberately hid their identities as adjusters. If those people openly revealed their identities as regulators, they would probably have a different appearance. Maybe so. After all, the importance of Victoria Airport to Earth United is equivalent to the importance of Bright Night to Aubrey. If Earth United can recapture Victoria Airport, it'll be fine. In view of a situation where Earth United was unilaterally suppressed under the ground by Zaft, the Earth United headquarters in Earth was naturally anxious to increase their forces on the space front. And the only ones who could achieve this were Victoria Airport in Zaft's hands and Aubrey's Bright Night Mass Accelerator. Zaft, who was well aware of this, naturally would not allow Earth United to recapture Victoria Airport so easily. Therefore, with Zaft guarding Victoria Airport to the death, the Earth Alliance naturally set their sights on Aubrey's Bright Night. In the original work, this was also the reason why Aubrey detonated Bright Night on the eve of Earth United's attack. Victoria Airport. Lakis pondered for a moment and suddenly raised her head to look at Rei Minkai. Kai, do you think the Battle of Victoria Airport will start in advance? Rei Minkai thought for a moment and then shook his head. I don't know. Whether it's in advance or step by step, the outcome of the battle for Victoria Airport will have a profound impact on Aubrey's future until the end of this war that will burn human society. After some discussion, Lakis no longer persisted on this question. No matter what, Jimmy's personal invitation to the two before the Scandinavian diplomatic team left already meant something. Next, it was time for the two to meet Jimmy. Sahak's house. Lund Mina Sahak sat on the edge of the balcony, quietly watching the crescent moon rise from the sea level, as usual. This might be a rare free moment for her in the past few days. Ever since the battle on the deserted island, the information brought back by the special forces she sent out shocked this specially appointed successor of the Sahak family. Cloning people was not a new thing in today's world. What shocked Lun Mina Sahak was that this mysterious organization could not only clone a specific person, but also perfectly clone the target's memories, knowledge, skills, and other key factors that could prove their identity. In other words, if this mysterious organization wanted to, all the leaders of today's world could be replaced with their clones overnight, no photocopies, and have the possibility of ruling the world. Of course, this was not only denied by Ray Ming Kai, but also by Lun Mina Sahak herself. If this mysterious organization could really do this, this world might not be so deceitful. Thinking of this, Lun Mina Sahak suddenly felt that her idea was laughable. Mississippi Master Jannar is back. At this moment, there was a knock on the door and the butler's report. "Come in." Lun Mina Sahak did not get up and only responded lazily. The door opened and Lun Jannar Sahak's somewhat impatient face appeared in front of Lun Mina Sahak. "Mina, you're looking for me?" Lun Mina Sahak nodded slightly, then pointed to a document on the table beside him. "That's the report after the battle on the deserted island. Take a look." Lun Hiner Sahak didn't suspect anything. He walked to the table and picked up the document, flipping through it. Unbeknownst to him, while he was flipping through the documents, the butler guarding the door quietly closed the door at Lun Mina Sahak's signal, leaving only the siblings in the room. After that, Lun Mina Sahak quietly waited for her brother to finish reading the document. The document contained the preliminary results of the investigation carried out by the special forces after combining what they had seen and heard on the island with the information they had brought back with them, and at the behest of Lun Mina Sahak, the investigation was carried out in secret. Although it was only preliminary results, in Lun Mina Sahak's eyes, this document was undoubtedly the result. "Mina, could there be a mysterious chess piece within our ranks?" Lun Mina Sahak read quickly. It did not take long for him to finish reading the document and come to a conclusion. "Very likely. Mina." Lun Mina Sahak's voice was cold. So cold that Lun Mina Sahak, who had lived with her for a long time, could not help but reveal a hint of surprise. "Then, do you have a target? And why would you believe a document like this? Just because of that little girl?" He had learned of Klaya's existence from Lun Mina Sahak. Lun Mina Sahak had never thought much of Klaya from the start. He had only thought of her as a clone born out of a conspiracy. Nothing more. That little girl is just a link in the chain of evidence. Mina. And, obviously, Lun Mina Sahak did not approve of the document in his hand. "And I've already sent people to search for any suspicious targets. Of course, it's only limited to members of the Sahak family. As for the other families, especially the members of House Ashar, I have no interest. House Sahak has no interest either. Then, you want me to be in charge of this operation?" Seeing that his sister's attitude was very clear, Lun Mina Sahak did not question her. Instead, using the usual method of communication between siblings, Lun Mina Sahak took the initiative to request to be in charge of this operation. "How rare. Mina, although we are brother and sister, there's a clear division of labor between us. Today, why are you so interested in interfering with my affairs?" Lun Mina Sahak was stunned and almost did not react. "No, isn't this because—" Before Lun Mina Sahak could finish his explanation, Lun Mina Sahak suddenly laughed. "Forget it. I can leave this matter to you to handle. After all, Victoria hasn't started yet." "Good. Then, leave this mission to me." "Mina." Lun Mina Sahak nodded. Then, as if she was talking to her brother in the past, she casually reminded him. "Mina, according to our intelligence, although the mysterious organization can create clones with the same memories, abilities, and knowledge as the original, there is a fatal flaw." "Flaw? What flaw?" The corners of Lun Mina Sahak's mouth curled up slightly, and he continued. "Based on the information we have obtained, if the mysterious organization is targeting a natural person, the clones as a whole shouldn't have many flaws." "Natural people?" Lun Mina Sahak frowned slightly. Natural people's genes were natural, full of random, unstable, and uncontrollable factors. Therefore, if there were any problems during the cloning process, it could be understood and adjusted again. If, suddenly, Lund Mina Sahak's eyes widened and he looked at Lund Mina Sahak. The dark muzzle of a gun. A dark muzzle was pointed at him. It was pointed at his head. If the target of the imprinting is the adjuster, then the gene chain of the adjuster that has been artificially adjusted will show a trace of instability. This trace of instability will become more and more out of control as the cloning process increases. In the end, the cloned person will fall into madness. Mina, you. Lund Mina Sahak couldn't believe what he was seeing. His own sister was pointing a gun at him. Mina, within our Sahak family, all suspicious targets, with the exception of a certain person, have been eliminated. A certain person? A certain person. Not me. Mina. Yes, maybe not you. But Mina, why were we born? Why do we exist in this world? Lund Mina Sahak didn't let his brother answer, but continued to answer his own question. We exist to build Ob, to bring Ob to a more glorious future. Therefore, we don't need to have all the negative emotions of humans. For example, anger, jealousy, hatred. Lund Mina Sahak. After the collapse of Heliopolis, Lund Mina Sahak, who should have been piloting the Golden Heresy back, unexpectedly lost contact with the Dawn Society in Ob for as long as 18 hours. Why? Lund Mina Sahak's voice was cold, as if she was facing a stranger. In reality, she might be facing a stranger. Lund Mina Sahak was about to answer, but was once again interrupted by Lund Mina Sahak. Just because you discovered that the red and blue heresy was taken away by Rojalai of the recycling house and Songyun Shio of the giant serpent's tail, you cut off contact with the Dawn Society in Ob? Lund Mina Sahak's voice grew colder as he laughed coldly. I didn't expect my stupid brother to make up such a clumsy lie. Mina, I am the heir of the Sahak family. Lund Mina Sahak, do you want to kill me and inherit the entire Sahak family? With a black gun pointed at him and Lund Mina Sahak repeatedly cutting him off, Lund Jaina Sahak flew into a rage. His furious expression made Lund Mina Sahak's cold smile deepen. Didn't I just say it? We were specially created by humans. From the very beginning, we don't need to have the negative emotions of humans. Mina, the more the imprint is duplicated, the more unstable the genetic chain duplicated from the original will be. The imprint whose genetic chain gradually collapses will be dominated by many negative emotions until the moment of complete collapse. No, I am the regulator. Not some imprint. Mina, this is your scheme. Lund Janar Sahak leaped forward, trying to subdue Lund Mina Sahak. However, Lund Mina Sahak was prepared for this. He turned around and tripped Lund Janar Sahak. Lund Janar Sahak fell to the ground. Look at you now. I'm afraid you've already lost the purpose and meaning of our birth. Let's meet again on the road to hell. My stupid brother Lund Mina Sahak. Bang! The Sahak family under the night sky was alarmed by the gunshot. Before the panicked servants could react, they were calmed down by the butler's men. Miss, the house is quieted down. The butler who walked back into the room didn't look at Lund Mina Sahak lying in a pool of blood. Instead, he bowed respectfully to the girl standing beside the corpse on the balcony. Take him away. Send him to a place isolated from the world. Yes, I'll let the young master have a good rest. Also, if the young master comes back. Lund Mina Sahak raised his right hand and handed the gun to the butler. You should know what to do. Yes, Miss No Master. Chapter 586. The butler and maidservant stood on both sides of the dining hall with their eyes closed. They stood there like statues, waiting for their master's new orders. As the butler who had such standardized actions and performed perfectly, the master of the maidservants, Momi slowly put down the cutlery in her hand and looked up at the distinguished guest of the Asha family tonight. I wonder if tonight's dinner is to your liking? Hearing that, Lakis put down her cutlery and revealed an appropriate smile. Tonight's dinner is great. Don't you think so? Kai. Ray Minkai, who was sitting beside Lakis, laughed heartily before shaking his head. Audrey, you're making things difficult for me. To me, the food on this table is no different from the food outside. It's just food to fill my stomach. Ha ha, Sir Kai, you sure are humorous. Ray Ming Kai's words didn't embarrass Hammy. On the contrary, he laughed heartily. That's right. To us humans, food is just to fill our stomachs. However, with the development of society and the increase of productivity, humans who could fill their stomachs began to pursue new things, new tastes. As he spoke, Hammy raised his finger and pointed at the dazzling array of food on the table. Normally, it would be enough to fill the stomachs of 10 people, but now it was specially prepared for Ray Ming Kai and Lakis. Therefore, driven by this desire, humans who grasped more and more resources and productivity began their endless pursuit. The moment Hammy said that, Ray Ming Kai and Lakis secretly exchanged glances. It seemed like the theme of tonight's dinner was about to begin. Lei Ming Kai shifted his gaze and looked at the seat that should have been occupied but was now empty. Perhaps, for tonight's dinner, Hammy even forbade his daughter, Carrie, from making an appearance. Yes, more fragrant, sweeter, more exciting, and more choices are the most direct sensations that humans pursue when it comes to food. However, under this pursuit, humans are able to obtain the drive to develop more productivity and more new continents. Lakis continued Hammy's words. Hammy glanced at the white mask on Ray Ming Kai's face before looking at Lakis. Yes, Miss Audrey was right. It is precisely because of this pursuit that humans can constantly pursue more fragrant and sweeter food under the guarantee of developing new productivity and discovering new continents. However, this seemingly endless pursuit of humanity has planted hidden dangers in the future that are enough to destroy themselves. At this moment, Ray Ming Kai and Lakis understood the meaning behind Hammy's words. However, Lei Ming Kai and Lakis weren't too interested in Tommy's thoughts that were hidden deep inside. Before that, continue to increase productivity until it's enough to eliminate the hidden dangers. This might be a solution, right? Prime Minister Jimmy. Lux chuckled. Chimi couldn't see the depth of that pair of smiling eyes, nor could she see the scenery behind that smile. Really, immediately, Mimi revealed a smile. I'm probably worrying too much. Now, humans had already set foot in the universe. Under the vast sea of stars, there will always be materials that can be used by us humans for a long time, right? Exactly. Ray Ming Kai picked up his wine glass and raised it to Hammy. Prime Minister Jimmy, let's toast to the future of humanity. Lakis smiled sweetly and raised her wine glass as well. To the future of humanity. Cheers! Hammy's eyes flickered slightly, but the smile on his face deepened. Yes, let's toast to the future of humanity. Cheers! Clang! When the three glasses clinked together, it also represented the end of the banquet. After dinner, Ray Ming Kai and Lakis tactfully rejected Prime Minister Aubrey's invitation to stay with the reason that Clias still needed to be taken care of. Watching the car slowly drive out of the Prime Minister's residence, Hemi sighed inwardly. During the banquet, just now, Hemi's conversation about food wasn't a casual one. There was a certain deep meaning behind it. If Lei Ming Kai and Lakis had given a different answer back then, Hami would probably have extended an olive branch to Lei Ming Kai and Lakis without hesitation, inviting them to join the third faction that insisted on maintaining its neutrality and not participating in any meaningless wars, much less persecuting any side. But it was just that the two of them had very sharp instincts in this regard. Hammy knew that while he was making a fuss, Ray Ming Kai and Lakis had already made corresponding countermeasures to deal with his invitation. In fact, it could be coercion. However, Hammy was unable to do something as unsightly as coercion. This didn't just concern Hammy Nara Asha's personal reputation, but also Aubrey's entire country's image. The daughter of the Sahak family is really lucky. Tomorrow was the day that the Scandinavian diplomatic group would leave Aubrey. After leaving the Prime Minister's residence, the car carrying Ray Ming Kai and Lakis slowly drove onto the island's highway and drove along the coast toward the Scandinavian embassy. Looking at the moonlight and starry sea outside the window, Lakis couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief. Just now, when Hammy extended the invitation, Lakis was indeed tempted. If she could obtain the help of Aubrey, who had the most say in the third camp and was the country's most powerful person, Lakis's future would probably be smoother. However, as the price for a smoother path, Lakis would inevitably have to pay a price. For example, she would have to confess her identity and guarantee, in the name of Klein, to fight for more benefits for Aubrey in the future. In this way, what difference would there be between her and the imprinted person who replaced her under the control of the mysterious faction? Lakis, are you still thinking about what happened just now? A little. Hearing Raymond Kai's question, Lakis slowly nodded. Actually, Lakis, you don't have to worry about it. Jamie Nara Asha may not have thought further than that. Just now, he secretly extended an olive branch to us only because of the changes in the situation in Scandinavia, as well as the sudden appearance of you, Audrey Sass. Me? Audrey Sass. This was Lakis's current identity in front of the public. The second daughter from the mysterious Sass family. Under the halo of the Scandinavian Prime Minister's family. Under the mysterious name of the second daughter of Sass, who had never shown herself to anyone. Lakis, who had transformed into Audrey Sass, naturally received most of the attention from the third camp countries. Lakis, who thought of the key point, shook her head slightly as a bitter smile appeared on her lips. She, who should have kept a low profile and investigated and seized the name of Lakis Klein, had unintentionally become the focus of the third camp countries once again. This is something I didn't expect, isn't it? Kay. Sometimes, I wonder what kind of person I would be if I were to take off the name of Klein. The moonlight from the crescent moon in the night sky scattered on the surface of the sea, just like Lakis' current state of mind. What kind of person would you be? Ray Minkai chuckled. Actually, I think that if you don't have the name of Klein, Lakis, you'll probably become more like an angel. Angel? Lakis was slightly taken aback. She was surprised that Ray Minkai would use this word to describe her. Yes, angel. An angel who descended to the mortal world and brought songs of hope to the people. When he said this, Ray Minkai's face was serious. So serious that Lakis could not believe Ray Minkai's words. She subconsciously thought that this might be Ray Minkai's flattery. Unfortunately, just as Lakis was about to speak, the chauffeur said, "Don't worry. Sir Kai, Miss Audrey, there seems to be someone waiting for us in front." Waiting for us? Hearing this, Ray Minkai and Lakis both revealed a hint of surprise. Amidst the sound of waves crashing onto the shore, above the waves rolled up by the night wind, a pitch-black sports car was parked in front of the spacious observation deck that was specially built. And beside the pitch-black sports car, under the black hair that was swept up by the night wind and danced in the night sky, was a beautiful and serious face. Lund Mina Sahak. She actually appeared in front of Ray Minkai and Lakis, who had just returned from the banquet. In such a manner, it seems that Prime Minister Sammy's hospitality is very good. You two look very well. Seeing the car with Ray Minkai and Lakis parked not far away, and seeing Ray Minkai and Lakis get out of the car, Lund Mina Sahak smiled and greeted them as if they were old friends. "May I know why Miss Sahaka has stopped us at such a time?" Ray Minkai looked left and right, and the white cat, State Zero, who was hiding in the dark, also reported back. Other than Lund Mina Sahak and Ray Minkai's side, there was no one else here who was confident. "It's just that I'm a little bored at home. I came out to get some fresh air, and also to see my friend who is about to leave Aubrey." Lund Mina Sahak smiled and walked up to Lakis step by step. "I'm very sorry about what happened on that island. Miss Audrey SAS. No, that was just an accident." Lakis shook her head, but Lund Mina Sahak answered first. "Actually, we don't have to be so formal. Sir Kai, Miss Audrey, you can call me by my name, Mina. In exchange, I'll call you both by your names. How about that?" "That's fine too." Ray Minkai and Lakis naturally wouldn't refuse Lund Mina Sahak's request. With the other party's permission, shortening the other party's name appropriately might be an opportunity to get closer. "So Kai, Audrey, I wonder what plans you two have after leaving Aubrey." Lund Mina Sahak didn't beat around the bush and went straight to the topic. Ray Minkai and Lakis exchanged glances. prepare to start a comprehensive diagnosis and medical treatment for Klaya. Lakis's answer was within Lund Mina Sahak's expectations. However, she wasn't satisfied. Audrey's decision is natural. But Kai, what about you? Me? Ray Minkai's gaze and Lund Mina Sahak's met in the night sky. At this moment, Ray Minkai's eyes were already dark. This woman's gaze had already landed on the distant future. Yes. Don't you think we might have a chance to work together in the future? Lund Mina Sahak chuckled. She raised her right hand and pointed to the west against the night wind that swept in from the sea. At this moment, Lund Mina Sahak's gaze seemed to cross the ocean and the continent between Aubrey and Lund Mina Sahak's destination. It landed on the distant end, the west, the distant continent. Ray Minkai understood. It was the Battle of Victoria Airport. Indeed, perhaps we'll have a chance to work together. Not perhaps. Kai. Lund Mina Sahak softly revealed a secret that not many people knew except for the upper echelons of the Earth Alliance. The third Battle of Victoria Airport is about to begin. What? The Earth Alliance is attacking Victoria early? Lei Minkai was shocked, but he quickly understood what was going on. The key to the Earth Alliance daring to advance the third Battle of Victoria Airport was probably Ray Minkai. The Archangel and the Gauda assault landed successfully in the Alaska headquarters. In order to leave the Earth Alliance headquarters smoothly, Ray Minkai handed over the OS program used by the natural people to the Earth Alliance. With the combination of the two, the impact of the two had begun to take effect. The early appearance of the Dark Assault was one of these effects. Thinking of this, Ray Minkai sighed in his heart. He didn't expect his little butterfly to really set off a gradually growing storm. Then, the person heading to Victoria Airport will be your brother, Lund Mina Sahak? As soon as Ray Minkai asked this question, Lund Mina Sahak sneered. No, the person heading to Victoria Airport isn't Lund Mina Sahak, but me, Lund Mina Sahak. After a pause, Lund Mina Sahak said again, It's a pity. Although Kai may have other expectations for my foolish brother's performance, just now, I've already executed my foolish brother with my own hands. After all, when he recovered the Golden Heresy, he had been disconnected from Aubrey's headquarters and the Dawn Society for at least 18 hours. According to the information recovered from the island, they only need less than 10 hours to replace the original body with the photocopies under their control. Chapter 587. On the Blue Planet, there was a vast space that was gradually being stepped on by human footsteps. But this space that was defined as a new home by human beings had now become an important way to attack the Blue Planet that gave birth to human civilization in the midst of the human civil war. On the synchronous orbit of Earth, a fleet was quickly assembling. The members of this fleet were all from the fleets under Zaf's command. The purpose was to drop all the MSs deployed by Zaf's headquarters into this fleet at the right moment, aiming towards the Blue Planet below. In Aslan's pupils, the light emitted by the Blue Planet was reflected. He knew that this was just Earth refracting the light from the sun, but he couldn't help but imagine that it might be an invitation from Mother Earth. Oh, so you're here, Aslan. At this moment, a magnetic voice came from the corridor behind him. Aslan retracted his gaze and looked back. He realized that it was the captain of his own team, Lu Kreutzer. Captain Kreutzer. The silver mask reflected the blue light from Earth. His blonde hair swayed slightly under the microgravity. Kreutzer's tall and straight body landed lightly beside Aslan. There's only the two of us here now. There's no need to be so reserved. Kreutzer smiled and turned his head to look at the Blue Planet outside the window. Speaking of which, this is the first time you've been so close to Earth, Aslan, right? Yes, this is basically the same as what the textbooks say, but I can't describe that feeling. Aslan's words made Kreutzer's smile gradually deepen. Is that so? But, Aslan, you don't have to care too much about this feeling. This is the feeling that every wanderer who returns to their home planet from the vast space will have. Well, the feeling that can probably be similar to this feeling should be the feeling of a mother opening her arms to a wanderer returning home and softly saying welcome home. Mother, Kreutzer's words made Aslan slightly stunned, but he still lowered his head, not letting Kreutzer see the emotions on his face. Yes, Mother, to all of humanity, Earth is undoubtedly a mother-like existence. No matter what the situation is, the moment I see this blue planet completely in front of me, there will always be a burning feeling in my heart. Hearing Kreutzer's words, Aslan raised his head and looked at the silver mask. Captain Kreutzer, did you think of your mother too? Mother, if Aslan could see through Kreutzer's face that was hidden under the mask, he would probably be frightened by that pair of cold and mocking eyes. However, Aslan couldn't see the change in that pair of eyes. He could only hear Kreutzer using his deep, magnetic voice to slowly speak. Yes, every time I see this beautiful blue planet in front of me, I think of my mother. After pausing for a moment, Kreutzer continued. Aslan, do you know? There is an organization within the Earth Union that is obsessed with completely eliminating us regulators. Their slogan is for the blue and clear sky. For the blue and clear sky. Aslan's heart trembled. Yes, every time they launch an operation against Plan and Zaft, these people would always shout for the blue and clear sky and pull the trigger, killing all the enemies in sight. Even Kreutzer glanced at Aslan and said softly, even during Blood Valentine's Day on Eunice the 7th, it was the same. What? Aslan subconsciously took a step back and looked at Kreutzer with a shocked expression. Perhaps this was the first time Aslan heard of the Earth Union's performance during Blood Valentine's Day. At this moment, the details that Kreutzer mentioned had never appeared in Plant's official propaganda. Even in Zaft, there was no record of this slogan. Are you surprised? Aslan. Kreutzer seemed to be very satisfied with Aslan's current performance. No, it's just that. Aslan quickly calmed himself down and stood up again. He turned around and continued to look at the blue planet outside the window. It's just that I don't understand why they did this. Why? Kreutzer's lips curled up slightly, but he didn't guide Aslan further. Instead, he raised his hand and patted Aslan's shoulder. The answer to this question, you will probably have to find it yourself. Aslan, but, Aslan glanced at Kreutzer's right hand on his shoulder, then looked up at Kreutzer. But, no matter how popular you are, we are now at a critical moment when we are about to enter the battle. Aslan, don't let me down. After saying that, Kreutzer lightly tapped his feet and flew towards the aisle that led away from the observation deck. Beside Kreutzer's departing white figure, a patch of red quietly appeared. It was Alice Pompey. The red-clothed girl and the white-clothed Kreutzer passed each other as they saluted each other. The latter left the observation deck with a smile on his face. The former took over the latter's position beside Aslan. What are you thinking about? Aslan. The red figure landed lightly beside Aslan. Aslan, who had lived in space since he was a child, felt that the ease with which Aslan handled microgravity and how he should move was incredible. It was as if the red figure in front of him was a human who had lived in space since he was a child. No, I'm not thinking about anything. I'm just thinking about the battle we are about to start. Aslan shook his head slightly and pointed to the blue planet outside the window. Earth? What a beautiful planet. Aslan, speaking of which, you may not need to squeeze with others in the upcoming landing battle. Alice glanced at the blue planet, then shifted her gaze to Aslan and smiled softly. Don't need to squeeze with others? But Sacred Shield Gao can't break through the atmosphere alone. Aslan reacted quickly, but before he could finish, he was stopped by Alice's finger. Do you want to know? Then come with me. That's my new masterpiece. As soon as she finished speaking, Alicia pulled Aslan to his feet and took him away from the observation deck with a tap of her foot. Among Naku, Isaac, Diego, and Nigger were in their own bodies, doing the last debugging before the landing battle. They were focused, and almost all of their minds were devoted to debugging their beloved machines. After a long time, Diego was the first to complete the debugging of his beloved machine, Storm Gauda Phew. It's finally done. Earth's environmental parameters are really complicated. Even with the data from Gibraltar, it will take a lot of effort to adjust. Diego stretched lazily and shook his numb hands. Even an adjuster with excellent programming ability would inevitably feel a headache when faced with complex and enormous environmental climate parameters. Diego, check it again. You're definitely lazy. Looking at Diego's expression of relief and suffering, Yizak was instantly infuriated. Huh? How? Storm Gouda is mainly firepower support. As long as the parameters of the weapon are modified properly for environmental changes, there won't be much of a problem. After all, Storm Gouda doesn't need to rush up like Dual Gouda. Diego's annoying appearance made Yizak explode on the spot. He prepared to rush out of Dual Gouda's cockpit with his hands and feet, rush to Storm Gouda's side, pull Diego out, and beat him up. However, a commotion came from the entrance of the passageway, allowing Diego to luckily escape this calamity. Then, what the hell is that guy doing? Yizak, who had just rushed out of the cockpit, saw a man and a woman appear at the entrance of the passageway. He immediately stopped charging towards Storm Gouda's body and turned around to look at the man and woman. How enviable. Probably being handsome is also a kind of strength. Isn't it? Yitzhak. Diego, who had poked his head out of Storm Gouda's cockpit, also saw the man and woman. What a joke. Yizak growled, but he didn't pay attention to it and waved his arm forcefully, almost falling into an embarrassing state of rolling in midair. Fortunately, as soon as Yizak's body posture began to lose control, Diego, who had already foreseen it, reached out and pulled him back. Yizak, if you're envious, why don't you find one for yourself? What a joke. Diego, you're deliberately making fun of me, aren't you? Yizak, who seemed to have his tail stepped on, grabbed Diego's collar on the spot. Diego was so scared that he raised his hands repeatedly, indicating that he was just joking. It was noisy here, but Aslan was shocked by the things in front of him. Sacred Shield Gouda. Aslan was naturally very familiar with this. But what was the matter with the giant object, which was 20 meters tall and 15 meters wide, that was placed quietly beside Sacred Shield Gouda? That was like an elongated triangle, with a certain arc of wing tips on both sides, and a certain proportion of golden lines drawn on the pitch-black surface. Aslan, have you tried surfing? Alicia was very satisfied with Aslan's astonishment. Her laughter was as clear as a bell. Surfing? Aslan shook his head slightly. Although the environment of April City was very good, it was not luxurious enough to allow people to surf at will. Is that so? It's okay. I've designed a program that will allow you to easily master the meteor pedal in a short period of time. Meteor pedal? What's the name of this thing? As he spoke, an idea flashed in Aslan's mind. This is the new equipment that allows Sacred Shield Gouda to break through the atmosphere alone. Alicia smiled sweetly. Yes, this is the key equipment that allows Sacred Shield Gouda to break through the atmosphere. Under the sky, it was the barren land that was perennially hot. Even though the development of human civilization had already set foot in the vast space, this barren land was still swaying back and forth between barbaric primitive tribes and modern technological civilization. It was as if on an endless grassland, wildebeests and zebras were moving along a route that had not changed for thousands of years, heading towards a new and more fertile habitat. Amidst this massive migration of animals, there were hunters hidden in the long, withered grass. Roar! A low roar exploded from the distance. The hunters hidden on the left and right sides of the migration route suddenly moved. They moved quickly, dispersing the obstacles around the target. They divided the work between the left and right, pinning the target to the ground and biting the target to death with their sharp claws and teeth. In an instant, the hot air was filled with the smell of blood. Roar! The wildebeest were bitten to death by a few female lions. After confirming that the target had been bitten to death and that there were no hateful hyenas around, they called out to the big tree in the distance. State 0, your little wife is calling you. Sitting on the top of the tree, Ray Minkai took advantage of the coolest moment under the shade of the tree to put down the binoculars in his hand and tease the pure white lion lying under the tree. Shut up. The pure white lion that was resting under the tree growled and refuted Ray Minkai. Unexpectedly, The lion that was lying next to it was frightened. After retreating a few steps, it hesitantly took a few steps forward and surrendered in front of the pure white lion. It lowered its huge head and waited for the pure white lion to reprimand it. "Get out of my way. I have no interest in getting involved in your business." Seeing the lion's submission, State Zero flew into a rage. Roar. Amidst the pure white lion's roar, the brown lion fled and went straight to the place where the female lion had called out. TSK. Troublesome. A few days ago, Ray Minkai and Lakis, who had returned to Scandinavia, received an invitation from the Eurasian Special Envoy, Bernard. The Battle of Victoria Airport was about to begin. Therefore, after settling Lakis and Klaya down, Lay Minkai came to this vast African grassland in the name of a tourist to observe the situation and wait for an opportunity. However, on the first day that Ray Minkai entered the grassland, he was attacked by a pride of lions. At first, Ray Minkai thought that he was unlucky to be captured by a pride of lions. However, when the white cat State Zero suddenly revealed his pure white lion form, Ray Minkai realized that the pride of lions was coming for State Zero. "Why? Do you want to leave some souvenirs here?" After Ray Minkai finished speaking, the big tree under him shook violently. Under the tree, the flustered and exasperated pure white lion slapped the big tree. "Minkai, you bastard. If I had known, I wouldn't have followed you to this damned grassland. I'm a metal life form, not a weak life form." Ray Minkai's laughter came from the shaking tree. He was not afraid of State Zero's threat. If State Zero wanted to, he would have turned into a giant metal beast and razed this area to the ground. Suddenly, the pure white lion put down his sharp claws and looked towards the southwest. "Kai, the people from Earth Union are all here." Ray Minkai raised the binoculars in his hand again and looked towards the southwest. After a long while, he slowly put down the binoculars. "Yes, this grassland is going to suffer." Chapter 588. Rumble. As the dark clouds swept across the sky, an oppressive atmosphere enveloped Victoria Airport. The humans couldn't help but shrink their necks and stretch their necks to look into the depths of the endless plains. "Those bastards from the Earth Alliance won't come back, right?" A young soldier gripped the fully automatic rifle in his hand and looked nervously at the plains in the distance. A few days ago, the scouts discovered traces of the Earth Alliance's army near Victoria Airport. They even engaged in a skirmish with the Earth Alliance's equipment. Even though there were victories and defeats, the battles told Zaf's army, who had just conquered Victoria Airport, that the previous owner of the airport had returned. "Cheer up. If we can defeat the Earth Alliance once, we can defeat them a second time and a third time." The young Zaf soldier was suddenly patted on the back. He was so frightened that he turned back to look. "Captain, you." Before the young soldier finished speaking, he heard a scream. "Get down." The sky and earth turned upside down. The moment he was pressed to the ground by a huge force, the young soldier saw countless rays of light blooming above the dark clouds. Starlight. The moment the whistling sound tore through the sky, countless flames bloomed in the sky. After drawing an arc in the sky with lightning speed, they fell toward the defensive position built around Victoria Airport below. Amidst the whistling sounds that tore through human hearing, the fireballs that fell like meteors drowned out the defensive position. In an instant, the continuous roaring explosions and the rumbling thunder in the sky became a symphony, wantonly announcing their presence on this land. Artillery fire. This was artillery fire. This was the artillery fire from the Earth Alliance. Zaf Scout's discovery was correct. The Earth Alliance had returned to Victoria Airport and fired the first shot on this thunderous day. No, it should be the first shot. Rumble. In the sky, thunder rumbled. Under the dark clouds, the cannons rumbled. Standing on the bridge of the Bonaparte, a large land warship in active service of the Earth Alliance, a blond man with a smug look on his face was watching the artillery positions behind the Bonaparte display their might. As a businessman and the director of the Blue Persian Chrysanthemum, This was the first time he saw such a shocking scene. After the horizontal expansion, the artillery position, which was nearly 2 kilometers long, continuously fired shells at preset coordinates that could be adjusted according to the frontline strike data at any time. Boom, boom, boom. On the horizon, there were flames that kept lighting up. Not long after these flames lit up, the roar of the shells raging on the ground rolled in this direction. It's truly breathtaking. Humans are a race full of destructive desires. The blond man had a satisfied smile on his face. He was obviously very satisfied with the scene in front of him. In the end, now that the Earth Alliance was able to gather such a large force here, it was also the result of him dealing with the internal affairs of the Earth Alliance. Unlike those timid officers of the Blue Persian Chrysanthemum, he was younger and sharper. Naturally, he wouldn't let go of a good opportunity to let the Earth Alliance recapture Victoria Airport. The failure of the man, known as the Desert Tiger, was actually seen by some people in the Earth Alliance as zaff-bait. This was simply laughable. I heard that our foreign aid has arrived. After despising those timid officers in his heart, the blond man looked back at the officer standing beside him. From the organization and battle plan, the officer standing beside the blond man was undoubtedly the commander of this attack. However, because the blond man was the director of the Blue Persian Chrysanthemum, the organization behind the Earth Alliance, even the top commander of the army, didn't dare to offend him. Yes, the reinforcements from the Sahak and SAS families have arrived. The blond man nodded slightly. Sure enough, in the face of righteousness, even the countries that claim to be neutral have sensible people. Very good. After a pause, the blond man continued. Let them be in charge of the flanks. As for the front line, let our new product be in charge. Yes, crackle. In the dark clouds, the wild snakes danced wildly. The twisted bodies are wantonly shuttled between the clouds, broke through the clouds, and plunged straight into the ground. The lightning tore apart the humans' gazes at the plains at this moment. Amidst the flashes that tore apart the increasingly dark space, soldiers with nervous faces and agile hands and feet were constantly shuttling between the positions of the Earth Alliance, according to orders. They either boarded armored vehicles or tanks and waited for the order to attack, or jumped onto trucks loaded with ammunition to transport the ammunition urgently needed by these artillery positions. In this busy scene, a man and a woman stood out from the surrounding tense scene, but they were also wearing masks. They were standing high and looking at the busy crowd below. It seems that the Earth Alliance has made a lot of preparations for this attack. The woman with a black mask on her face and black hair tied into a ponytail looked at the busy crowd and said softly, "After all, it's about the next action. If this Victoria Airport can't be recaptured, then the next target of the Earth Alliance is very likely to be Aubrey." The man with the white mask said calmly, causing the woman to frown deeply. "I understand this. That's why I'm standing here. But why are you wearing a mask like me? According to the traditions of the Sahak family, not many people should know of your existence, right?" The woman with the black mask was naturally Lund Mina Sahak. After personally executing Lund Janar Sahak, who was supposed to be here, Lund Minar Sahak appeared as a replacement. Just like Lei Minkai, Lund Minar Sahak was wearing a mask that covered his face. "Aren't you the same? Sir Knight." The man who was called a knight by Lund Mina Sahak was none other than our protagonist, Rei Minkai. That's because there are some difficult reasons. "Mina, then I have one too, don't I?" Lund Mina Sahak's eyes, hidden under the mask, moved as she looked at Rei Minkai's white mask. Rumble. Kacha. At that moment, a thick bolt of lightning flashed across the sky, and a downpour came crashing down, drenching the busy soldiers. Wallalala. Raindrops bigger than peanuts fell on the tents, dense and loud. One couldn't help but wonder if the tents above their heads could withstand the storm. In just a few minutes, many small puddles had formed in the low-lying areas. The soldiers who were running to find shelter from the rain became mud figures in the blink of an eye, looking particularly pathetic. The cannons are about to stop. Lund Mina Sahak raised her gaze and looked at the rear of the camp. The cannons were no longer as powerful as before when the storm came. No, it should be strengthened. This may be an opportunity for the Earth Alliance. An opportunity? Raymond Kai's words made Lund Mina Sahak slightly stunned. Yes. Raymond Kai looked at the large land warship Bonaparte parked in the center of the camp. He remembered that this large land warship, named Bonaparte, would become the mothership that destroyed Gouda in the near future. It could accommodate an MS form of 56, 3 meters, and an MA form of 38 meters. The mothership of the Gouda that destroyed Gouda was naturally able to accommodate an MS that was less than half the size of Gouda. In the Stargazer chapter, Sure-1, who completed the mission, bumped into Mu and others who were escorting the unconscious Stella for treatment in the mothership. Although there were many reasons why Zaft was able to seize Victoria Airport from the Earth Alliance, among these reasons, there was one that couldn't be ignored. That was Zaft's MS. Upon hearing Raymond Kai's words, Lund Mina Sahak thought for a moment and had already guessed the situation that they might face next. You're saying that Zaft's MS might ambush the Earth Alliance's cannons? Ray Minkai smiled slightly. Isn't this very likely? The arrival of the storm reduced the intensity of the cannon's attacks by at least 30%. Moreover, under the dark clouds that are so dark that only lightning can illuminate, the light emitted by the cannon's roars is undoubtedly an extremely conspicuous signal. Therefore, in order to resolve the bombardment of the Victoria Airport as soon as possible, Zaft will definitely send MS troops to ambush them. Indeed. But these are things that both Zaft and the Earth Alliance should have thought of. What I'm worried about is only there. Ray Minkai stretched out his finger and pointed at the dark clouds above his head that covered the sky, and lightning wandered freely. Lund Mina Sahak looked up but didn't react for a moment. The meaning of Ray Minkai's words was clear. How Zaft took over the Victoria Airport might be the deciding factor in this battle when the battle here reached its climax. Boom! Boom! Just as Lund Mina Sahak was thinking, a strange roar suddenly exploded behind the cannons. The roar wasn't the loud roar of the cannons, but the sound of something exploding. Emergency! Your Excellencies! The frontline command has just issued an order. Our rear cannons are under enemy MS attack. Your Excellencies, please attack immediately. As expected, Zaft's MS attacked the cannons. Ray Minkai and Lund Mina Sahak looked at each other and immediately split up. They ran towards the two hills covered by huge canvases. In the splashing rain, in a lightning that tore through the darkness, two steel bodies covered by canvases slowly stood up and pulled out all the nails that held the canvases in place to prevent them from being blown away. They wantonly displayed their steel bodies under the rolling thunder. Roar! A fierce wind blew, and the canvas was blown up. A steel beast with sharp lines all over its body. But it was incomparably majestic, fearless of the might of heaven and earth. It stepped on a small hill, raised its huge steel head, and roared at the sky, causing the joint soldiers hiding in the tent to be dumbfounded. That's Zaft's Baku. What are you talking about? That's a lion. How can Zaft's Baku look like this? Aren't you going to modify it? Under the tent, the Alliance soldiers who were soaked all over stared blankly at the steel lion charging towards the rear of the cannons. For a moment, no one could guess the true identity of this steel lion. Kai, this method of yours is really ingenious. You actually disguised Baku as a huge steel lion? Amidst the torrential rain, a mech with streaks of golden radiance appeared and disappeared in the darkness, accompanying the steel lion that was sprinting all the way. It's just a little trick. In the Battle of Victoria Airport, Ray Minkai could only use Baku in Dark Assault. The former had already been known in the battle with the Desert Tiger, so it was not easy to use it openly. The Dark Assault had not yet been repaired and further modified. Therefore, Ray Minkai had no choice but to use the Long-Tooth Lion Zero, his trump card. Of course, in the face of the Earth Alliance's high-level officials, Ray Minkai would still use the name of Baku as a shield. Although the design of the long-toothed lion was somewhat in conflict with the current MS design concept of this world, After considering the various strange factors of the body created by the special group of mercenaries and scrap dealers, the higher-ups of the Earth United did not care too much. After all, for them, as long as Ray Minkai could help them take down this Victoria airport, the mission was already completed. Apart from that, they wouldn't even consider what methods Lame Minkai would use. Little trick? Lunmi Sahak's gaze moved on the screen, carefully observing the details of the sharp steel armor on the long-tooth Line Zero. The more he observed, the more certain Lunmi Sahak was that the body in front of him was likely not a modified Baku body used by Zaft. I see the enemy. 5 Xeon. Hee. They really put in a lot of effort. Ray Minkai didn't know that Lunmi Sahak was observing the long-tooth Line Zero, but after the radar locked on a Xeon who was attacking the artillery position, he immediately made a choice. The 3 on the left are mine. The one on the right is yours. Mina. As soon as he finished speaking, the plasma engine on the back of the long-tooth Line Zero exploded. The torrential rain that suppressed human vision to a range of 20 meters was suddenly raised to subsonic speed in the blink of an eye. Woo! Amidst the torrential rain, the Long Fong Line's berserk gallop created a gust of wind that suppressed the rumbling of thunder for a short period of time. Taking advantage of the fact that the 3 Xeon mechs were unable to react in time, the Long Fong Lion leapt into the air like a meteor and crashed into the attacking formation of the 3 Xeon mechs. Shwa! In the curtain of rain, a golden light bloomed, and the chest of a Xeon was suddenly cut open, revealing the power unit inside and the cockpit that had already been vaporized by the laser claw. Boom! The Xeon lost its power. The soulless Xeon fell to the ground with a loud bang, creating a huge splash and drowning the surrounding cannons. The remaining Xeon were frightened and took a step back. They raised their heavy assault rifles and pointed at the Type 0 Fong Lion. Roar! Facing the muzzle of the gun, the steel lion fearlessly stepped on the fallen Xeon and roared. Chapter 589. Pitter-patter. Snakes danced wildly in the sky. Under the dark clouds, the steel behemoth stepped on the silent Xeon. It looked up at the 2 Xeon in front of it and let out a low roar that even the rolling thunder could not suppress. What kind of monster is that? Baku. The Xeon on the left had the same question as the previous Earth Alliance soldiers, but this question was destined to be unanswered. Kacha. Above the sky, the moment lightning flashed through the dark clouds, the steel behemoth tore through the rain curtain and rushed towards the Xeon in front of it like an arrow. Without hesitation, at the moment the thunder exploded, the 2 Xeon also did not hesitate to pull the trigger at the same time as the Twin Fong Line Zero attacked. They shot wildly at the Twin Fong Line Zero. The moment the whistling bullets rushed out from the heavy assault rifle's muzzle, it relied on its own huge kinetic energy to open up a bullet path in the overwhelming rain curtain and rushed towards the Twin Fong Line Zero. However, before these bullets could hit the Twin Fong Line Zero, the Twin Fong Line Zero, which was accelerating in a straight line, suddenly disappeared from the sight of the 2 Xeon. The wind pressure caused by the Twin Fong Line Zero's high-speed movement suddenly stagnated and was immediately submerged by the downpour. Disappeared? Where'd it go? Quick! Maintain the formation. The Xeon on the right was stunned for a moment, but quickly reacted. He pulled the Xeon on the left and stood back to back, looking at the rain curtain that almost drowned the sky and the earth. Walala! The thick raindrops continued to pound against the cold armor of the Xeon and the heavy assault rifle in the hands of the Xeon. The dense sound of the raindrops assaulted the hearing of the 2 Xeon pilots. The Xeon pilot on the left could not bear the sound and subconsciously reached out his hand to turn off the system that monitored the outside world. This action may not be a big deal under normal circumstances, but on this battlefield, where the enemy had disappeared, any trace of movement could lead to defeat or even death. However, the sound of the thick raindrops constantly hitting the Xeon's armor and the heavy assault rifle in the hands was too annoying. It was almost like a ridicule that dragged the 2 pilots into a whirlpool of anxiety. Walala! The torrential rain continued. However, the Xeon on the left was no longer receiving sound from the outside world. All that was left was the faint sound of machinery and the breathing of the pilot in the cockpit. Where is it? Strangely, without the sound of the thunderstorm outside, Xeon was unable to calm down. Instead, with the meaningless sound of the mechanical operation in the cockpit and the gradually heavier breathing, the anxiety of not being able to find the enemy grew stronger and stronger. It almost took over the heart of the pilot. Calm down. Now, the enemy is waiting for us to reveal our true colors. The Xeon on the right seemed to have noticed that something was wrong with its comrade, but its pilot did not expect that when his comrade had turned off the external sound system, he had also turned off the communication channel by mistake. Thus, without being able to hear any sound from the outside world, let alone the voices of his comrades, the pilots finally went crazy under the increasing pressure. Get out here! Da-da-da-da. The pilot, who was dominated by anxiety and pressure, held the trigger in his hand tightly. He let the Xeon under his control take a step forward and shoot randomly in the surroundings. He even let out a crazy roar as he looked at the bullets that tore through the rain. Die! 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 Die for me! Give me! Who was on the right, hurriedly turned around and tried to stop his comrade's crazy actions. But unexpectedly, the moment he turned around, a black shadow suddenly appeared from the rain and pressed him to the ground like a mountain pressing down on him from top to bottom. Moreover, a familiar golden light flashed the moment the Xeon fell to the ground. Bang! There was an explosion, a ray of fire. The Xeon, who was pressed down by the black shadow, fell into dead silence on the spot. Walla-la-la! In the torrential rain, the Xeon, who was shooting crazily in the surroundings, seemed to have noticed something strange behind him. He quickly turned around and, in the splashing rain, quickly turned the muzzle and aimed behind him. However, before he could pull the trigger again, the black shadow rushed over. Gotcha! The violent friction between metal. Even if the external sound capture system was not turned on, the pilot sitting in the Xeon's cockpit could still hear some movements. It was the hand. Xeon's right hand, which was holding the heavy assault rifle, was bitten by the black shadow. Monster! Monster! The remaining Xeon pilot stared at the scene in front of him. Xeon's right hand was being bitten by a steel beast. He could even clearly see the armor on Xeon's right hand being constantly pressed until it broke, revealing the circuit that was protected by it. The Xeon pilot, who was unwilling to lose, moved his hands continuously. This Xeon suddenly raised his left hand and slammed it down on the steel beast's head. However, before the heavy punch could break through the rain and hit the steel beast's head, the other party decisively let go of Xeon's right hand and lowered its body, narrowly avoiding Xeon's heavy left punch. This was not because the long-fanged lion was afraid of Xeon's counterattack, but because it had never cared about Xeon's fist. It let go of its huge mouth so easily because Xeon's right hand had been forcefully crushed by it. Kai, last hit. Okay. The crouching long-fanged lion stomped its four limbs, and like a cannonball, it fiercely sent Xeon flying. Roar. Under the rain, Xeon, who fell heavily on the ground, was enveloped in a golden light. As the golden light faded away, a terrifying wound appeared on Xeon's chest. Even the cockpit had been melted away, making it seem like an exceptionally terrifying wound. Boom! The explosion made the long-fanged lion, who had just finished off 3 Xeons, turn its head and look to the other side. Kai, that little girl who learned to play with a mask like you is gone, right? State Zero's mouth was unforgiving. No, Mina will not be defeated in the hands of small fries. Among the princesses of the outer sky, Lund Mina Sahak's performance was more dazzling than the main character carries. Hee hee, is that so? State Zero laughed a few times but suddenly stared at the rain. A huge black shadow was slowly stepping out of the rain and stood in front of the long-fanged lion. In a white rainstorm, the body, which was mainly black with gold embellishments, slowly raised its right hand and showed its battle record to the long-fanged lion. It was a Xeon with only half of its body left. It seems that Sir Knight has solved this farce earlier than me. The cold wreckage was casually thrown away by Jean Hadwan, and in the midst of the splashing mud, Lund Mina Sahak's admiring voice sounded. These small things are not worth mentioning. Ray Minkai smiled slightly and moved his gaze towards the direction of the large land carrier, Bonaparte. The battle here ended in such a short time. He believed that the commander of the Earth Alliance army, Ray Minkai, was just a blond man who had seen from afar. Mutayazi Lars would soon know about the situation here. Just that, Ray Minkai's gaze moved up again and looked at the dark clouds that were still shrouded in lightning. Zaf's specialty, orbital airborne, was still the biggest threat. Just as Ray Minkai predicted, after the enemy that attacked the artillery position was quickly dealt with, the scattered artillery positions began to gather again and roared towards Zaf's defense line at the fastest speed. Mutayazi Lars already knew the performance of Ray Minkai and Lund Mina Sahak. Looking at the battle footage that was transmitted back from the rear, Mutayazi Lars's right hand lightly tapped on the chair's handle. He did not expect that the foreign aid that was invited by the Eurasian Federation would have such strength. In a 2 versus 5 situation, they dealt with the enemy's attack with a complete victory. Moreover, that strange-looking beast-type body, which was suspected to be modified from Baku, easily killed 3 Xeons in a 1 versus 3 situation. One must know that before the trump card he brought had been revealed, the casualty ratio of Xeon and Earth combined armored forces was 1:6. Is this an unexpected surprise? Lars Mutayazi smiled, then stood up and waved his right hand. Inform the front line. Prepare for the assault. In addition, let the lion and Sahak's body participate in the assault at the front line. Yes, no one dared to refute Lars Mutayazi's order, and no one dared to be slow in transmitting his order. Therefore, before the teethed lion and the golden heresy left the artillery position, Lars Mutayazi's order was transmitted. Kai, it seems that we will have to pay a price this time. Looking at the order to be the vanguard, Lund Mina Sahak's eyes flashed with reluctance. Then he looked at the teethed lion. No, it's not the price. Maybe the enemy's forces on the front line are not enough to make us pay the price. The enemy's real killing move should be the orbital airborne that could appear at any time. Is it? Obviously, Lund Mina Sahak didn't think of this. Perhaps even Lars Mutayazi didn't think of it, right? Even so far, the Earth Alliance had encountered groups of Gene airborne troops thrown over their heads by Zaf countless times. Let's go. Ray Minkai didn't have the intention to tell Lars Mutayazi this information that might come true. Therefore, the teethed lion and the golden heresy machine rushed toward the front line that had begun to be covered in flames. The rainstorm gradually subsided, but the dark clouds above the sky were still dark. The oppressive black clouds pressed down on the city, adding to the aura of death on the smoke-filled battlefield. The heavy assault rifle in Xeon's hands kept hissing. Zila, boom! During the surprise attack on Earth's combined artillery position, the Baku troops that didn't appear also appeared on the battlefield. Relying on their high mobility, they provided firepower for Xeon while quickly weaving through the battlefield, looking for any opportunity to defeat Earth's combined attack. When the light beam broke through the sky, the rain instantly evaporated, and a Baku that had nowhere to escape was pierced through and exploded. Kai, isn't the number of enemies a bit too much? The golden heresy machine followed closely behind the teethed lion and provided cover fire for the high-speed, mobile teethed lion. No, it's still normal. Based on the importance of Victoria Airport, the 8 Xeon and 10 Baku that were blocking the teethed lion and the golden heresy machine were probably only a part of Zaf's forces stationed at Victoria Airport. Is that so? It seems that we still have to suffer for a while. Following the arrowhead formed by the tusked lion Type 0 and the heretic golden mech were the armored troops of the Eurasian Federation to attack Victoria Airport. Although the momentum was great, it was just an appetizer for Xeon and Baku's combined MS forces. They were able to persist until now thanks to the Teethed Lion and the Golden Heresy Machine. These two extremely eye-catching machines attracted the attention of Zaff's pilots. Roar. The Teethed Lion lowered its body and avoided the attack of the electromagnetic cannon Baku that was waiting for an opportunity to sneak attack. Then, with a kick of its four limbs, the two plasma engines on its back exploded, and it turned into a stream of light that rushed towards the electromagnetic cannon Baku. Clang! In the blink of an eye, the sound of metal being cut resounded through the sky. The electromagnetic cannon Baku fell to the ground, leaving only two halves of the neatly cut wreckage that splashed a burst of mud. Monster! That is Earth's MS. The Teethed Lion instantly cut the electromagnetic cannon Baku into two halves, startling the surrounding Zaft soldiers. It also made the Baku soldiers, who were ravaging the Earth's armored forces, collectively turn their muzzles and launch a fierce attack on the Teethed Lion, which seemed to be the most threatening target at the moment. The intensity of the offensive even forced the Golden Heresy Machine behind the Teethed Lion to avoid the sharp edge, thus choosing to take a detour, looking for an opportunity to break these Baku soldiers one by one. Boom! Boom! The missile came from the side. The flash of the electromagnetic cannon and the thunder above the black clouds were particularly eye-catching. All of these attacks were directed at the Long Fong Lion State Zero. Buzz! Boom! In the flames ejected from the plasma engine of the Type Zero, several Mach rings appeared one after another. The Type Zero suddenly turned into a white lightning, and with a very fast speed, it left behind the annihilation firepower net created by the electromagnetic gun Baku and the guided missile Baku behind. Roar! In the continuous roar of the explosion, the Teethed Lion plunged into the midst of the Baku soldiers. In the blink of an eye, the Baku soldiers were drowned by the explosion, and the debris scattered like snow on this barren land. Chapter 590. Boom! Boom! The cannons roared. The Baku troops moved out from various garrisons in Victoria City. They quickly rushed towards the most intense frontline area where the Zaft MS suffered the most losses. On the left and right of the Baku troops, there were figures of Xeon supporting the flanks on both sides. In the sky, because the thunderstorm and the dark clouds had begun to weaken, Zaft's trump card, Dean, also took off to occupy the sky as quickly as possible. Are the losses too great? What kind of monster is that beast-type mecha? In the control center of Davila Airport, a Zaft commander clenched his fists tightly. It had only been half an hour since the Earth Alliance launched their attack under the heavy rain. The frontline battle situation was overwhelming, causing Zaft, who was stationed at Victoria Airport, to suffer a great loss. The culprit behind this situation was not because the Earth Alliance had invested a huge number of troops. Instead, it was because of two new mecha that had never been seen before, possibly developed by the Earth Alliance. Is it the latest mecha developed by our Baku? What's going on with that defense? From a real-time battle images sent back from the front line, the Annihilation team, formed by 3 Xeon and 2 electromagnetic cannon Baku, had successfully hit the beast-type mecha more than once. However, when facing the Earth Alliance's sharp attacks, which are like chopping melons and vegetables, they were unable to penetrate or even break the armor on the opponent's body. What made Commander Zaff feel even more incredulous was that after the smoke from the explosion dissipated, the armor on the beast-type mecha was still spotlessly white and flawless, as smooth as new. How is this possible? The real-time images of the front line showed how terrifying the enemy looked. The Steel Lion, which had never been heard of or seen before, was actually so powerful in the face of Zaff's pride and the MS that had once suppressed the Earth Alliance in this war. Report: the flanks of the Earth Alliance army have begun to attack. In addition, according to the reports from the front line, the Earth Alliance seems to have used a new type of MS that we have never heard of. What? Commander Zaft clenched his teeth tightly. Could it be that the pure white Steel Lion and the low-key black MS that followed behind it were not all the trump cards of the Earth Alliance? Damn it! We can't let the Earth Alliance take back Victoria Airport. Send out a request for backup. Yes. Above the void, above the churning black sea of clouds, a huge fleet gathered by Zaft was quietly waiting above the synchronous orbit, waiting for an order. All of a sudden, bundles of flames lit up one after another. The Zaft fleet, which gradually increased the output of the propulsion engine to the maximum, began to accelerate and descend, setting off towards the planned orbital airborne coordinates. This was a battle of support from the heavens. In the flagship of this fleet, Kreutzer, who had changed into a pilot's suit, stood in the middle of Naku and looked at the teenagers standing in front of him. I believe all of you have already understood the battle plan. Well, I'm going to split up now. Aslan and Ally can go with me, while Isaac, Diego, and Nagori are the second team. The team I am in charge of will act as a distraction force, land in Panama, and pretend to attack the Earth United military base in Panama. The second team will be led by Isaac. Your mission is to support the garrison of Victoria Airport and do your best to repel the Earth Alliance. If the situation is unfavorable, you must cooperate with the local garrison. Understand? Yes. Captain Kreutzer, Aslan, Isaac, and the others had no objections. This battle plan had been sent to their personal hands when the Zaft airborne fleet was assembled. However, what surprised them was Kreutzer's manpower allocation plan. Aslan, you're really a lucky guy. While there was still some time before the orbital airborne began, Diego grabbed Aslan and teased him. Diego, stop. This is just Captain Kreutzer's arrangement. Aslan naturally understood what Diego meant, but he didn't know what to say for a while. Since the military academy, Aslan had acted with Nagori, Isaac, and Diego. Now Kreutzer's arrangement made Aslan somewhat at a loss. Diego, you don't have to worry about Aslan. With Captain Kreutzer, Aslan will be fine no matter how stupid he is. Compared to Diego, Isaac's attitude was somewhat cold. All right. Time is almost up. Let's go. Aslan, I'll see you later. Seeing that the atmosphere was a little stiff, Nagori immediately smoothed things over and tried to separate everyone. Well, see you later, Nagori. For some reason, Aslan couldn't help but panic as he looked at Neger, who had pushed Yitzhak and Diego away. But Aslan didn't catch a trace of panic. He just looked at Nagori's figure disappearing outside the door, moved the corner of his mouth, but couldn't say anything. Kacha! Lightning flashed through the dark clouds, and thunder rumbled through the earth. The pure white steel lion raised its head slightly and looked at the sky that was gradually calming down. Buzz! The heretical golden machine shot out beams of light, forcing a Xeon team to retreat and stand beside the long-toothed lion, State Zero. What happened? Lun-Sahak quickly glanced at the dark clouds that were still thick in the sky. The enemy's support is here. Before the war, what Ray Minkai was worried about finally happened. State Zero noticed the abnormality in the sky above Victoria Airport. Zaft's airborne troops had begun to move out. The sky? Lun-Sahak suddenly realized what was going on. Is it an orbital airborne? Yes. Mina, let's go back. We're no longer needed here. The long-toothed lion, State Zero, immediately turned around and accelerated back to the area where the land mothership Bonaparte was located. Its speed was so fast that the slow reaction of the heretical golden machine almost couldn't catch up. The battle was still fierce. Even the departure of the long-toothed lion and the heretical golden machine would not affect the situation of the Earth Alliance, suppressing the Victoria Airport's Zaft army in a short period of time. The only thing that could make a major impact on the reversal of the battle situation was perhaps the Zaft's armored forces that were rapidly descending from the ninth heaven to the land that was ignited by the flames of war. The sunlight scattered. The dark clouds brought by the torrential rain that had turned the land and the grassland into a muddy mess were inadvertently broken through, allowing the bright and warm sunlight to pass through the dark clouds and scatter on the land again. That's Zaft's airborne troops. Quick! Level 1 Air Defense Alert. Quick! The Earth Alliance general, standing next to Mutayazi Lars, saw the black spots that appeared in the scattered sunlight. He suddenly remembered the scene where Zaft used the orbital airborne technology to beat up the Earth Alliance, who couldn't react in time. Sure enough, let those three guys attack. Mutayazi Lars bit his thumb and immediately gave an order. Report. 2 of our MS class left the front line and are rapidly returning here. Deserters? Who is it? The general was stunned and asked subconsciously. It's the Lion and the heretical Golden Machine. After a pause, the CIC continued. Now we have received a message from the Lion. It said that Zaft's orbital airborne has begun and they are requesting support. Nonsense. Their mission is... Before the general finished speaking, Mutayazi Lars stopped him. No, don't be so agitated. General, our friends are so worried about our safety. This is a good thing, isn't it? Mutayazi Lars smiled slightly and looked at the general. Since that's the case, let our friends and those 3 guys act together. Let those 3 naughty guys see what a real trump card is. The performance of the tusked lion and the heretical golden machine had already made Mutayazi Lars want to recruit them. It's just that they weren't as easy to control as those 3 guys. Da-da-da-da. Whoosh. Whoosh. Facing the breaking dark clouds, the rapidly descending figures under the scattered sunlight increased. The Earth Alliance's frontline command also set up anti-aircraft cannons and anti-aircraft missiles to form a huge and dense anti-aircraft firepower net above the position. Although under the influence of the neutron disruptor, the anti-aircraft missile's lock-on performance was far worse than before, it could still form a powerful anti-aircraft firepower net together with the anti-aircraft cannons under the preset distance and height. Boom! Boom! The thunder of nature quietly went away, but the thunder created by humans followed closely. Who was torn apart by the anti-aircraft artillery barrage, and who was hit by the anti-aircraft missile, became the protagonist of the battlefield at this moment. Zaft's airborne troops are here. Looking from afar, Lun Minasahak had already seen the first wave of airborne troops rushing into the Earth Alliance's frontline command, which was the area where the large land mothership Bonaparte was located. Yes, Mina, split up. Also, be careful of the Earth Alliance's new MS. What? Be careful of the Earth Alliance's new MS? Obviously, Lun Minasahak didn't understand Ray Minkai's meaning for a while, but the tusked lion had already turned around and rushed towards the other side of the position. Kai, target found. It's those guys. Well, I saw it. Dual Gauda, Storm Gauda, and Thunderbolt Gauda all appeared in the sky above this battlefield. Unexpectedly, now that the Archangel landed in Alaska ahead of time, the trajectory of the 3 Gauda's movements also changed. Originally, in this battle for the Victoria Airport, Dual, Storm, and Thunderbolt did not participate in the 3 Gauda's battle. It's really a pity. Yitzhak Diego Nigal, the pure white tusked lion, rushed forward and went straight to the area where the 3 Gaudas were about to land. Diego Nigal, be careful. This is our first time participating in an orbital airborne battle. Don't mess it up. As the new captain of the team, Yitzhak was full of energy, vowing to make a good name for himself and let Aslan see the color of Eden. Understood. Even if Yitzhak said so, Diego and Nigal couldn't help but feel strained when facing such a dense anti-aircraft barrage for the first time. Furthermore, just as the 3 Gundams had descended to less than a kilometer in altitude, an even more ferocious wave of cannon fire followed closely behind, forcing the 3 Gundams to preemptively move and do their best to avoid the cannon fire from below. Fortunately, because the 3 Gaudas were equipped with PS armor, the live ammunition attack they suffered did not drag the 3 Gaudas into the same ending as the surrounding Zon. This is the orbital airborne battle. Zon, who was constantly blown up by the anti-aircraft barrage, shocked the teenagers. Don't be in a daze. Gather. Let's show the naturals some color. As soon as Yitzhak shouted this sentence, he suddenly found that the screen in front of him turned black. Boom! Dual Gaudas was knocked out in an instant. Damn it! Who is it? The violent impact made Yitzhak dizzy, but what made him even angrier was that he, who boasted that he was better than others, was actually sneak attacked by the natural person. Yitzhak, be careful. That seems to be the new Earth United airframe. Lion, pure white lion. Diego and Nichols' surprised voices sounded one after another. Lion? What lion? Those messy animals have long been. Yitzhak shook his head and looked at the screen, but he was shocked by the body on the screen. Big? What a big lion. A pure white body, cold light flowed, slender golden pupils, sharp and terrifying golden claws, and that huge body were all impacting Yitzhak's worldview. Bah! Coo! Da-da! Buzz! The movement made by Storm Gauda and Thunderbolt Gauda's attacks woke Yitzhak up. Yitzhak, stop being in a daze. This big lion won't let us go. Storm Gauda, who was controlled by Diego, retreated continuously, trying to distance himself as much as possible under the cover of Thunderbolt Gauda, trying to use his own firepower advantage to kill the steel lion that suddenly appeared in front of him. Not good. Diego, that lion's speed is too fast. Get out of the way. Although the beam rifle in Thunderbolt Gauda's hand was powerful, it could not catch up with the pure white lion's movements. TSK. Seeing this, Diego could only drive Storm Gauda back again. Get out of the way. At this moment, a blazing light flashed past Storm Gauda's eyes and went straight to the pure white lion's face. As the soil splashed, the pure white lion only jumped to the left and avoided the blazing light. Diego, step back. Dual Gauda stood in front of the pure white lion. Chapter 591. Yitzhak, shut up. Hide in the back and support me like nigger. Let me take care of this weird lion. Yitzhak's eyes were fixed on the tusked lion. Diego opened his mouth and obediently followed what Yitzhak said. When he was trained in the military academy, he retreated to the middle and rear with Nigger, who was driving Thunderbolt Gauda, ready to provide cover for Dual Gauda's attack. This posture made Ray Minkai smile slightly. It's still the same. I've seen this formation more than once. Yitzhak was the main force, and Diego and Nigger were the auxiliary force. One attacked head-on, two or wandering, waiting for the opportunity to launch a surprise attack, or occupying a favorable position to provide firepower cover for the partner who attacked head-on. Well, this was a classic offensive formation, but for Ray Minkai, it was a formation that had been destroyed countless times. Yitzhak's plan was good. However, there was a fatal flaw in this formation. Sorry, Nigger. The plasma thruster on the back of the pure white tusked lion roared, and the tusked lion that was stopped by Dual Gauda disappeared in the blink of an eye. From one side to the rear, it went straight to Storm Gauda and Thunderbolt Gauda, who had just completed the offensive formation. Don't underestimate people. Lion. Yitzhak used the tusked lion to avoid his duel. Gauda rushed to Storm Gauda and Thunderbolt Gauda, and suddenly became angry. Buzz! Buzz! Dual Gauda's 57mm high-energy beam rifle seemed to be able to feel the anger in its pilot's heart, and fired a sharp beam attack. The dual Gundam's attack wasn't as simple as the 57mm high-energy beam rifle's beam. While it chased after the teethed Lion Zero, it also activated the 75mm Vulcan cannon on its head. The 75mm Vulcan cannon's barrage was not to hurt the tusked lion, but to limit its range of movement, so that the 57mm beam rifle in Dual Gauda's hand could be fatal. However, the speed of the tusked Lion Zero was too fast at this moment. It was so fast that even Dual Gauda's 75mm Vulcan cannon could not catch up with its figure, and could only fall behind in vain, creating a pit on the ground. As the core attack of this chase, the 57mm beam rifle's performance made Yitzhak even more furious. Hit him! Hit him! Hit him! Hit him! What kind of monster is this lion? Too fast! Too fast! Every time Dual Gauda moved the muzzle under Yitzhak's control to predict the next move of the tusked lion, he always found that the tusked lion either ran faster, or as if it saw through Dual Gauda's prediction in advance, it avoided Dual Gauda's muzzle first. The chase didn't last too long. In just a short span of 2 or 3 breaths, the tusked lion had left Dual Gauda far behind and rushed to the front of Storm Gauda and Thunderbolt Diego. Get out of the way. Like Yitzhak, when he saw the tusked lion rushing to the front, Neger also made the same choice. Hey! Neger, hold on. Diego, who was forced back by the tusked lion twice in a row, was unwilling. This time, he didn't just run away. Instead, he chose to jump with all his might on the Storm Gundam. While jumping high into the air, the Storm Gundam's 2 hands moved and clasped together. The combination of a 350mm anti-armor shotgun launcher and a 94mm high-energy retractable rifle was in his hands. Stop for me. This strike was the rage in Diego's heart that he was unwilling to accept. As long as the tusked lion was forced to stop, with the strength of the 3 of them, they would be able to deal with the tusked lion. Diego thought so, but, as he said before, Yitzhak, Diego, Neger's formation was already familiar to Ray Minkai. Or rather, at this moment, Diego's performance was already within Ray Minkai's expectations. So when Storm Gauda showed one of his trump cards, using a shotgun on an armor target, the tusked lion's 0 movement paused, his right body lowered, and his left front leg and left hind leg exerted force together. At the moment when Storm Gauda fired, he jumped to the right side simultaneously, and Storm Gauda's sure-hit attack missed. What? Storm Gauda crashed to the ground, but Diego's face was difficult to execute. Roar. The tusked lion's 0 roar sounded again. This roar, in Diego's eyes, was a burst of ridicule, laughing at his incompetence, also laughing at his weakness. It's just a beast. Storm Gauda separated his hands, and the shotgun that was combined into a pair of armor targets was immediately restored, and in the next second, it locked onto the tusked lion 0, firing out a hurricane-like barrage, trying to drown the tusked lion 0. Diego. Among the 3 of them, Neger was the only one who had not been provoked by the tusked lion 0. Therefore, under the anger of Yitzhak and Diego, Neger's calmness might be the key to stabilizing the situation in front of him. Roar. The roar of the steel behemoth was still loud, even if Storm Gauda's attack was enough to drown the area in front of him. Amidst the roaring artillery fire, amidst the deadly brilliance of the beam of light, the tusked lion 0 was like a ghost wantonly shuttling through the artillery fire, causing Storm Gauda's proud, powerful firepower offensive to become a joke. Buzz! Buzz! Suddenly, 2 beams of light crossed the sky and hit the ground beneath the tusked lion's 0 feet. Amidst the dust that was blown up by the high-energy beam, the long-fanged lion's figure changed. Once again, it nimbly disappeared from the Gundam and the Thunderbolt Gundam sight. Diego Neger, keep the formation. Dual Gauda, who was left far behind by the tusked lion 0, finally caught up. Roar. Yitzhak, be careful. The moment Dual Gauda appeared in front of Diego and Neger, the 2 immediately issued an alarm. Yitzhak was shocked, but he instinctively made Dual Gauda bend down. Boom! As the terrifying sound of metal clashing rang out, a black silhouette flew out from the Gundam's body. It tumbled through the air in an arc before crashing heavily onto the grassland, tearing open a ghastly wound on the grassland. Boom! The 350mm anti-armor shotgun attack followed. The steel behemoth that appeared behind Dual Gauda was forced to retreat. Yitzhak, are you okay? Thunderbolt Gauda quickly stepped forward, blocking in front of Dual Gauda. No, I'm fine. It's just that the head monitor was knocked off. Dual Gauda was ambushed by the tusked lion 0. Although he avoided the vital parts, his head monitor was still sent flying by the tusked lion 0. Hey, Kai, if you hold back like this, these 3 guys will probably continue to entangle with you. You don't care about the turtle mothership? State 0 seemed to be puzzled. No. There's no need to worry too much about the Bonaparte. As long as we stop Yitzhak and the other enemies will be dealt with by the hidden cards of Mina and Lars Muerdiazzi. Ray Minkai's confidence made State 0 curl his lips, but he did not say anything. The tusked lion 0 took a step forward and slowly walked around Gouda and Storm Gouda, who were protecting Dual Gouda like a hunter watching the final struggle of his prey. The formation of Yitzhak, Diego, and Nagori had been broken. Although the flaw was not on Nagori, but unexpectedly on Yitzhak, the result was not bad. Hey, what is that lion doing? A trace of cold sweat appeared on Diego's forehead. Even though the dueling Gundam had lost its head monitor, it could still use other auxiliary monitors to clearly see the situation around it. However, its combat power had already been greatly reduced. In this case, the strange lion seemed to be hiding even more terrifying strength. How could this not worry Diego? Suddenly, Thunderbolt Gao took a step forward, and his speed became faster and faster. Under the surprised gazes of Yitzhak and Diego, he raised the shield system on his right wrist. Whoosh! 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 The triple-headed armor-piercing bullets in the shield system were fired continuously. Coming! A golden light flashed in the eyes of the tusked lion, and he nimbly jumped left and right, easily dodging the triple-headed armor-piercing bullets fired by Thunderbolt Gouda. The black shadow appeared in front of the tusked lion's Zero like a shadow. The dark muzzle pointed straight at the forehead of the tusked lion Zero. Buzz! The moment the particles rushed out of the muzzle, the roar it set off shook the sky above the battlefield, and also shook the consciousness of Yitzhak and Diego. Thunderbolt Gouda's back was pierced through by a beam of light. Judging from the wound on his back, the place where it was pierced was the cockpit. No, Nagori. Yitzhak's eyes were red, and he was almost crazy. He didn't expect Nagori to be killed in front of him in such a ridiculous way. Dual Gouda's figure swayed, and he took a step forward crazily, rushing towards the slowly falling Thunderbolt Gouda. Be careful. Yitzhak! Boom! The roar of Storm Gouda's 94mm high-energy retractable fire rifle swept past the front of Dual Gouda, causing Dual Gouda's forward charge to slow down for half a minute, and it also calmed down Yitzhak's anger a little. When Yitzhak was about to curse, he saw a terrifying steel head appear in front of him. Lion. It's the pure white lion. Unknowingly, there was a beam sword in the mouth of the tusked lion. And this beam sword was the culprit that caused Nagori to die in such a ridiculous way. The steel lion shook its head slightly, and the beam sword that pierced through Thunderbolt Gouda was immediately discarded. After falling to the ground and rolling several times, it slowly stopped at the feet of Dual Gouda. This is ridicule. This is ridicule to Yitzhak. Chapter 592. The beam sword that lost its energy source slowly spun in front of Dual Gouda's feet. Zach's face was dull and angry. You actually dare to kill Nigger. Zach, who witnessed the death of his friend, was instantly dominated by anger, especially when Long Fong Lion threw the beam sword that pierced through Gouda's feet. The anger of hatred was even more intense. Die! Go to hell! Dual Gouda, who lost the head monitor, did not hinder Zach's anger at this time, nor did it hinder his perception of the surrounding situation. Instead, in a situation of extreme anger, Zach's thinking seemed to be accelerated by some unknown force. Fast and sharp, the beams from the Gundam's beam rifle seemed to have grown eyes as they stared at the tusk Lion Zero. There were even a few times where they almost hit the tusk Lion Zero. Hey, Kai, aren't you joking a little too much? Why is that white-haired boy crazy? Looking at Gouda, who transformed into a berserker in Duel, State Zero's eyelids twitched wildly, and he could not help but complain a few words. How would I know? Ray Minkai also had a headache. Logically speaking, Neger's death should not have caused much excitement to Yitzhak. From the beginning to the end, Zach could not stand Nigger's cowardice. He only thought that the reason why Nigger joined the army was only because of the influence of his surrounding and family, and not his own will. Therefore, in Zach's eyes, Nigger was almost equivalent to the existence of a coward. How could a person who had seen Nagori so clearly become so angry after witnessing Nagori's death in battle. Shouldn't Aslan be the one to act out this scene? That being said, Rei Minkai did not have the idea of retreating because of this. Roar! Longfang Lion Zero faced Dual Gao Da's Mad Dog attack without flinching after roaring and facing it head-on. Since you're like a mad dog, then I'll be even crazier than you. The pair of laser claws of the Longfang Lion Zero style waved like the wind, swatting away all of Gao Da's fists and kicks. Boom! Boom! In the duel, Gao Da's crazy punches and kicks were constantly smashing into the Longfang Lion, but it didn't hurt at all. Seeing this, dueling Gao Da suddenly took a few steps back and raised the beam rifle in his hand. However, in the next second, he was blasted back by a series of explosions. The beam rifle in Gao Da's hands had suddenly exploded a second ago. Not only did it fail to hit its target, it even blasted its master back. And the culprit behind this scene was the two cannons below the tusked lion's neck. With regards to Gao Da's duel, no, it should be said that Rei Minkai was extremely wary of all beam weapons that were hostile to him. With the integrated Lambda drive system, the tusked Lion Zero style was not afraid of being attacked by any live ammunition weapons. However, with regards to beam weapons, the tusked Lion Zero style's core energy had not recovered much, so it was somewhat weak. Dueling Gao Da was forced back by the explosion of the beam rifle, but it didn't let Rei Minkai let down his guard. Storm Gao Da was still not far away. The tusked Lion Zero style's four legs kicked, and once again rushed towards dueling Gao Da like a cannonball. The brilliance of the laser claws followed the tusked Lion Zero style's leap, outlining two deadly rays of light in midair, and went straight to dueling Gao Da's chest. As long as it hit dueling Gao Da, then dueling Gao Da's fate would inevitably be the same as the previous Xian who died under the tusked Lion Zero style's claws. His chest would be shattered, and his cockpit would be shattered into pieces. Boom! A rain of bullets came. Sure enough, it stormed Gao Da again. Storm Gao Da's 350mm anti-armor shotgun once again showed its power, and a large number of anti-armor bullets were fired towards the tusked Lion Zero style's direction. However, it was blocked by an imperceptible wall of light. That's right. This was the power of the Lambda drive system integrated by the tusked Lion Zero style. How was this possible? How can it not cause any damage to this lion at such a close distance? Diego, who was holding a killing blow, could not help but be stunned for a moment. He could not imagine that Storm Gao Da's 350mm anti-armor shotgun was unable to kill or even injure the enemy at a distance of less than 300 meters. Roar! The roar of the steel beast swept over. A huge black shadow enveloped Storm Gao Da. Diego, be careful. Wyzak's anxious reminder rang in Diego's ears. However, Storm Gao Da's movements were a beat slower. Schwa! The thick, no. As long as it was activated, the PS armor, which was equivalent to being immune to live ammunition attacks, was destroyed by the tusked Lion Zero style's laser claws like paper. In the next second, the 94mm high-energy fire rifle that posed a great threat to the tusked Lion Zero style crashed to the ground, accompanied by the tusked Lion Zero style's left arm that was torn off from Storm Gao Da's body, splashing a huge cloud of dust. At this moment, the dual Gao Da, Storm Gao Da's armor had been almost removed by the tusked Lion Zero style. Damn it, Diego, use up the last ammunition. Let's withdraw. He was unwilling to accept it. But so what? If he continued to entangle with this lion, it would not only be Nigger who would die. Wyzak, who angrily launched an attack on the tusked Lion Zero style, but to no avail, finally recognized the reality. But Diego, who was trying to continue to distance himself and look for an opportunity to counterattack, was slapped hard in the face by the tusked Lion Zero style. Bang! The terrible laser claw rushed like thunder, fiercely slapping Storm Gao Da's right shoulder. Now, it was the right time to use this hidden move. The leader nodded his head silently. Thumbs up. The moment Rei Minkai made the arrangements, the members around the ring of Midgard who climbed up Thunderbolt Gao Da's cockpit first to check the situation, raised their thumbs up high. Nigger, I hope we can meet in Scandinavia. Nigger was not killed by Ray Minkai. The scene of Thunderbolt Gauda's cockpit being pierced by Zach and Diego was just a trick played by Ray Minkai and State Zero. In fact, only the right edge of Thunderbolt Gauda's cockpit was melted. If Nigger's luck was good enough, he would only be injured and unconscious. Behind the back view of the pure white giant lion was the busy scene of moving a nameless corpse that was found from the battlefield into the cockpit of the Thunderbolt Gundam and replacing the unconscious young man inside. Soon after, the pure white giant lion, who had walked a distance away, heard the sound of an explosion. Those guys are so fast. State Zero turned around and looked at the smoke dissipating in the wind. Thunderbolt Gauda's cockpit had been blown up, along with the nameless corpse placed inside. After all, it's that woman's subordinate. The reunion with Yitzhak, Diego, and Neger was over, and all that was left was to seize the Victoria airport. Of course, this was just a result that was bound to happen. Chapter 593. In fact, when Ray Minkai returned to the main battlefield, the situation here was already overwhelming. It was the Earth United that was suppressing Zaft. Regardless of whether Zaft's garrison at Victoria Airport received reinforcements from the orbital airborne, the situation of being suppressed did not change. Because after the Long Fong Line Zero and the Golden Heresy left the front line, the Earth United's hidden trump card in the large land carrier Bonaparte was also revealed. The new mass-produced MS assault dagger, as well as the three new Gauda, Forbidden, Snatch, and Calamity. Under the leadership of these three new Gauda, the first appearance of the Earth United's mass-produced MS Shock Zaft, who was full of confidence and wanted to rely on the orbital airborne tactic to make a comeback. In the panic, because of the powerful performance of the Forbidden, Snatch, and Calamity Gauda, the situation of the battlefield was instantly reversed. Zaft's defensive line around Victoria Airport collapsed on the spot, and the defenders were beaten until they were dizzy, unable to organize an effective defensive line to block the sharp arrows formed by the three Gauda and the assault daggers. In front of them was the Golden Heresy. It seemed that it had been standing there for a while. Mina, are you done? The Long Fong Line Zero came to the side of the Golden Heresy and raised its head slightly, looking at the defensive line that was being destroyed by the three Gauda. Yes, this is the end of my mission. The Earth United show of strength this time is really shocking. Lund Mina Sahak's hands had already let go of the control stick, supporting his chin, watching every movement at the front line. Indeed, however, under the current offensive, there was at least a major threat hidden in the darkness of Victoria Airport. Probably, we don't need to worry. Kai, the Earth United has already sent people at the beginning. Lund Mina Sahak slowly retracted his gaze. Following Lund Mina Sahak's narration, Lei Minkai recalled the details of the third battle of Victoria Airport. When the Zaft garrison was on the brink of destruction, they had the intention to completely blow up Victoria Airport, leaving no room for the Earth Alliance. However, on the eve of the explosion, they were stopped by the Earth Alliance Special Forces who arrived in time. Now, it seemed that this offensive and defensive battle, which had already changed the course of events, was about to come to a predestined conclusion. Your Excellencies, we received a call from the front line. Our special forces have seized control of Victoria Airport. The general would like to invite the two of you over. The invitation had arrived. Now that the battle situation was clear, the Earth Alliance generals, who felt that victory was in their hands, began to act. Good, I got it. Lei Minkai casually roared in response before switching to the private channel with the golden machine of the heretics. Mina, what do you think? Aubrey, it's dangerous. Originally, the Sahak family's purpose of getting involved in this mess was to protect Aubrey from being targeted by the Earth Alliance who had lost Victoria Airport. But now, after seeing the Earth Alliance's new MS with his own eyes, Lund Mina Sahak realized that he had greatly underestimated the Earth Alliance's intentions. Yes, Aubrey, it's dangerous. Ray Minkai sighed. The Battle of Victoria Airport had begun and ended at least 1.5 months in advance. The Earth Alliance's next focus was to provide support to the universe. Then, while eliminating the threat on Earth, they would accumulate power and achieve a decisive victory in space. Therefore, the more mass accelerators he had, the more advantages he would have in accumulating power. I'll go back first. I'll leave the Earth Alliance to you. Lun Mina Sahak, who had always been concerned about Aubrey, could no longer sit still. Go. I'll explain it to you. Ray Minkai and Lun Mina Sahak had completed their mission. What happened next was nothing more than watching the Earth Alliance show off their prowess. At this point, Lun Mina Sahak was no longer in the mood to watch the monkey show. The night in the Arctic Circle was beautiful. The aurora that spread across the sky was like a swimming dragon wantonly swimming in the sky. During this period, the flickering fluorescent light and the flowing radiance like a river made the humans standing below, standing in the extreme north, unable to control themselves and were unable to extricate themselves from it for a long time. On an exquisite wooden house built by skilled craftsmen with raw wood as the raw material, a little girl wrapped in a thick warm coat with a strand of pink hair exposed from the hood was looking up at the sky without moving at all. She was looking at the flickering aurora that wantonly stretched out in the sky. "Clya, it's cold outside. Come back quickly." The sound of a wooden door being pushed open came from behind. Along with the sound of stepping on snow, a young girl, who had a similar face to the little girl and the same pink hair color as the little girl, came to the little girl's side and spoke softly, her hands gently tidying the little girl's clothes to prevent the little girl from catching a cold. "Aurora, Aurora." The little girl's gaze moved slightly, glancing at the face that was very similar to hers, then raised her head to look at the aurora in the sky. "That's right. That's the aurora. It's very beautiful, isn't it?" The young girl smiled lightly, then stood together with the little girl, looking at the drifting, dreamy aurora. After a long time, the little girl's gaze once again slowly retracted, looking at the young girl beside her silently. The young girl suddenly noticed the little girl's gaze, then squatted down, looking into the little girl's eyes, and smiled slightly. "What's wrong? Clya, do you feel cold? Then let's go back." "Okay." Brother. The little girl softly called a certain name. "Kai." The young girl's gaze changed, but she moved her gaze and looked towards the south. Kai went to a place very far away to do something. It might take some time for him to come back. As she spoke, the young girl said again, "If Kai comes back and sees that Clya has a cold, is sick, and can only lie on the bed, he might be angry. Perhaps she was afraid of getting sick, or perhaps she was afraid of Kai being angry." The little girl Clya turned around and walked quickly to the wooden door, pushed the wooden door open with great effort, and returned to the warm wooden house by herself, leaving the young girl looking towards the south silently. This was the first time since the Silver Wind incident that the two of them were so far apart. One was in the extreme north, accompanying his clone. The other was in the distant southern hemisphere, fighting for the two of them to be able to return to the universe smoothly. Fighting. Lei Mingkai was indeed fighting hard right now. However, the opponent he was fighting was not the enemy, but the Earth Alliance army that was still in the state of being an ally. No, to be precise, it should be fighting with 3 lunatics. Lunatics. They were indeed lunatics. Although Ray Minkai had previously warned Lun Mina Sahak to be careful of the new MS of the Earth Alliance, he did not expect that this warning would be applied to him. It was forbidden. After the Special Forces of the Earth Alliance completed the key mission of controlling the Victoria Airport, the pursuit force formed by the Assault Dagger and the Armored Forces was enough to complete the mission of pursuing the defeated Zaft army. Therefore, the 3 Gauda Mechs, as the main attackers, were naturally recalled. This was where the problem lay. Shani Andres, who was piloting the Forbidden Gauda, was originally following the instructions and obediently returning to the mothership Bonaparte. Unexpectedly, he saw a pure white giant lion slowly walking back from the front line. In an instant, the first generation of the Earth Alliance army, including Shani Andres, expressed interest in the pure white giant lion on the spot. Hey, Shunny, what kind of mech is that? MS. Ma. Or is it a new MS that could transform into a human form? Krot Buell, who was piloting the transformed mech to capture the Gouda, seemed to be more interested than the other two. Idiot, didn't Lars Yazzie say? This lion was the foreign aid they had invited. Moreover, it seems to have been modified from Baku. How can it have the ability to transform? Olga Sabrick, who was piloting the Calamity Gouda, mocked Krot's idiotic thoughts. Shut up, Olga. Come down if you have the guts. Don't sit on the back of my robber Gouda. Krot, who was mocked by Olga, was instantly unhappy. Moreover, his hands began to move. He piloted the robber Gouda and made all kinds of large movements, trying to throw the Calamity Gouda off the back of the robber Gouda. Hey, Krot, are you crazy? I was just casually saying it. Casually saying it is also wrong. Get down. The mothership Bonaparte was right in front of them. Krot and Olga actually got into a fight. In less than a minute, the robber Gouda actually managed to throw the Calamity Gouda off. Be careful. Run. When they saw the Calamity Gouda being thrown off the Gouda, the surrounding soldiers immediately covered their heads and fled in all directions. They were afraid of being affected by the battle between the three madmen. Boom! A black shadow fell from the sky and heavily fell in front of a long-tusked Lion Zero. Looking at the flying dust in front of him, Ray Minkai frowned and decided to stay away from the three madmen. If he continued to stay here, he was afraid that he would be entangled by the three madmen. After calculating the time, the three madmen seemed to be nearing the time when the drug's effect disappeared. As long as he could survive this period, the three madmen would naturally obediently leave. However, if you don't look for trouble, trouble will come to you. When the long-tusked Lion Zero slightly retreated and was about to go around, a flame swept across the front of the long-tusked Lion Zero. It was forbidden. It was the Forbidden's head that blocked the long-tusked Lion Zero's path. Hey, big lion, let's fight, shall we? Chapter 594. The three Gouda mechs, Forbidden, Snatch, and Calamity formed a triangular formation, surrounding the pure white lion in the middle. It looked like they were provoking it. Sitting in the Forbidden Gouda mech's cockpit, the smile on Shunny's face was almost the same as Krot's, who was provoking the long-toothed lion. As long as the pure white lion made a move, the three roaches would definitely cooperate and drag the long-toothed lion into their rhythm. Kai, can you kill them? The figure of the white cat, State Zero, appeared on Ray Minkai's shoulder. In this regard, Ray Minkai only set his eyes on the large land carrier, the Bonaparte. After a battle, the effects of the special medicine that the three roaches took should be about to wear off. Ray Minkai was not worried that he and the long-toothed lion would be besieged by the three roaches. What he wanted to know was Lars Yazie's attitude. If they were to fight, then Ray Minkai would not hesitate to let the three roaches leave early. In the Bonaparte, the general's face was a little nervous. The command of the three roaches was not in his hands, but in the hands of Lars Yazzie. Even if the general knew that it was not good to betray Victoria Airport, he could not order the three roaches to stop their actions. On the other hand, Muda Azrael stared silently at the pure white lion that was surrounded by three Gundams, Forbidden, Snatch, and Calamity. Although Lars Yazzie could not see anything from the pure white lion's appearance, he could feel the lion's composure. This steel beast did not panic because of the hostility of its allies. On the contrary, Lars Yazzie felt a looming murderous intent. To gamble or not to gamble? The answer was obvious. In order to cultivate the three roaches and create three new Gouda mechs, Lars Yazzie had spent a lot of effort. He did not want the three roaches and the new Gouda mechs to be wasted in this ridiculous internal conflict. What a disobedient puppy, informed those three guys. That's our honored guest. Those who attack the guests without permission will have to obediently await the arrival of punishment. After hearing Lars Metayazi's words, the general let out a sigh of relief. When the order reached Croft, Charles, and Olga, the three of them hissed in dissatisfaction. However, they didn't dare to disobey Lars' orders. Before they boarded the three Gundams, they had already personally witnessed the consequences of disobeying orders. In fact, they had even personally experienced it countless times. Cowardly lunatic! Seeing the three Gao to turn around and leave, the White Cat State Zero muttered in dissatisfaction. On the other hand, Ray Minkai looked indifferent. Lars Meta-Yez wasn't someone who would change sides at the last minute. Even though this guy was unscrupulous when it came to attacking the plants and the regulators, he was still capable of dealing with his allies. This is the Bonaparte. Lion, please reply if you receive. Hearing the call from the communication channel, the White Cat State Zero turned around and looked at Ray Minkai. Ray Minkai raised his eyebrows and accepted the call. This is the Lion. Due to the impact of the previous battle, the mech is now seriously damaged and needs to be repaired immediately. I'm very sorry that I can't participate in the celebration banquet. As soon as the words came out, Lars Metayazi's expression suddenly changed. The surrounding atmosphere also became a little colder. However, just when the general thought that Lars Metayazi would explode on the spot and order the retreating three roaches to once again surround Lion Zero, Metayazi suddenly revealed a slight smile. Is that so? Then, Lion, Your Excellency, I look forward to meeting you again. In addition, if Your Excellency wants to pass through Victoria Airport, please inform me in advance. I'll send someone to arrange everything for you. A conflict that could have happened was thus averted. Until Lion Zero left the Earth Alliance's position under the watchful eyes of the public and walked towards the airport, Mutayazi Lars didn't express anything. He only left a few bright red palm marks on the faces of the three roaches and scolded the three roaches. The explosion from Victoria Airport gradually subsided, but the dark clouds in the sky once again emitted the sound of rolling thunder. The smoke from the humans' war surrounding Victoria Airport was like a black pillar that soared into the sky. As the black pillar of flesh and blood that burned steel creation spread, the faintly fading dark clouds revived once more. Kacha! Suddenly, a lightning bolt appeared in the sky from the east to the south and struck towards the mountain range in the distance. It's raining again. Long Fong Line Zero stopped and looked up at the sky that was once again occupied by dark clouds and lightning. Rumble. A thunderclap. A gust of wind. It was already raining cats and dogs. Walalala. The rain fell again. The grassland in front of Lion Zero was immediately shrouded in white, and it was difficult to see the scenery in front of him clearly. I hate rain. White Cat Zero muttered a few times, then shook its body as if to shake off the rain that wouldn't even exist on its body. Let's go back. Hearing this, White Cat Zero grinned. I just came to this hot grassland, and now I have to go back to the snowfield. It's really ice and fire at the same time. Why don't you stay here and be your Lion King? Ray Minkai rolled his eyes and teased. Stop. Are those felines lions? They're so weak that they can't even take a slap from me. After the battle, a man and cat teased each other and left the battlefield. They returned to the field airport that was specially set up by the Earth Alliance to attack Victoria Airport. Through here, Ray Minkai would return to the military airport closest to Earth Alliance, and then transfer to Scandinavia from there. Bang! The glass of water fell to the ground, and as the water splashed, it also shattered into pieces and scattered at Yuri Amifai's feet. For Yuri Amifai, who had a strict style, this was something that could not be ignored, and it was absolutely impossible for this to happen. Say it again. What happened to N.I.? N.I.G.O.L.? Mr. Amifai, I'm very sorry. Your son, N.I.G.O.L. Amifai, participated in the defense of Victoria Airport and sacrificed himself heroically in order to protect the Allies. The Zaf soldier who stood upright had a regretful expression and said everything he knew in a mournful tone. According to the testimony of Isaac Mayer and Diego Elsman, who witnessed the whole process, as well as the results obtained from the battle video extracted from the two Storm airframes, Gol Amify was pierced through the cockpit by the enemy with a beam sword and died on the spot. What? This news was like a bolt from the blue, making Yuri Amify, one of the 12 members of the Supreme Council, feel dizzy and almost unable to stand. Mr. Amify, please be careful. When a Zaf soldier who came to report saw Yuri Amify's collapse, he immediately rushed forward to support Yuri Amify. The situation in front of him was not unfamiliar to this soldier. Since the war between the Earth Alliance and Plant, Zaft, he had been constantly receiving the list of casualties from the National Defense Committee and shuttling through Plant's colonial satellites with this list, guiding the souls of the Zaft soldiers who died on the battlefield to the place where they could return to. However, this was the first time this soldier personally delivered the news of the death of the 12 members of the Supreme Council to the member who decided the future of Plant. I'm fine. Thank you. Yuri Amify raised his hand and held his forehead, barely keeping himself awake. Right? Gol. Did he leave anything behind? Yes. Gol Amify's relics have been taken in and will be sent back to Plant in 3 days. At that time, Mr. Amify can personally confirm it. Hearing this news, Yuri Amify couldn't help but sigh. There was a trace of sadness and regret in his voice. Is that so? Then, thank you very much. I have received the news. You can go back and hand in the mission. The soldier glanced at Yuri Amify suspiciously, as if he was not at ease with the state of the member. But under Yuri Amify's almost commanding words, he could only choose to leave. Yes. Then, Mr. Amify, goodbye. The automatic door isolated the soldier's back and completely isolated Yuri Amify from the outside world. Silently looking at the closed automatic door, Yuri Amify suddenly stretched out his trembling right hand and pressed a few buttons on the keyboard on the side of the table. Click! The indicator light of the automatic door turned from yellow to red. Yuri Amify's office was cut off from the outside world. At this moment, Yuri Amify was truly isolated from the outside world. After doing all this, Yuri Amify's hands trembled and collapsed on the chair. His whole person fell into a dead silence. Gradually, a trace of sobbing quietly sounded, but there was a clear sense of suppression. Gol, my son. At this moment, Yuri Amify was no longer a member of the Supreme Council who decided the future of Plant, but a sad father who lost his beloved son. No one knew what happened to Yuri Amify, who had locked himself in the office for several days after receiving the news that his beloved son, Gol Amify, died. The people in Yuri Amify's research center only knew that when the door that had been closed for several days opened again, Yuri Amify, who had always stood firmly in the Klein faction's camp with a gentle attitude, had disappeared. Instead, he was replaced by an angry father who wanted to avenge his son and was driven by hatred. Is that so? Gol was killed. In the Klein family, a middle-aged man with a haggard face and a trace of tiredness in his eyes said in a hoarse voice, Yes, Gol was killed. Sitting opposite the middle-aged man was a young girl wearing a purple dress with long pink hair tied up. The middle-aged man moved his gaze and glanced at the face that made him feel angry. This is your plan? To provoke Plant's hatred for the Earth Union and cause a bigger and more terrible war? Although the anger in the middle-aged man's eyes was terrifying, the girl in the purple dress was unmoved. She smiled gently and shook her head slightly. No, this is not our intention. Father, our purpose is only to let this world have its own master, a master who can guide it to the future. Father, please don't panic, and don't be angry because of this. That familiar face, that familiar voice, that familiar posture made the middle-aged man have the illusion that his beloved daughter was in front of him. However, the middle-aged man slammed the table hard. Enough. Who are you? Why did you disguise yourself as Lux? The smile on the girl's face did not diminish. I'm just a woman who loves Aslan Sarah deeply and is angry for the injustice he has suffered and will suffer. As for why I'm here with this face, Father, didn't you already know? You want to use Klein's power? No, Siegel Klein will never allow it. Use? No, that's not right. Father. The girl gently waved her hand, indicating that she had no intention of using the Klein sect. The Klein sect is indeed powerful, but to us, it's just a grain of sand in the vast universe. The girl's face showed a charming smile. The reason why I'm here with this face is only for one person, and that is the person who should have been Lux Klein's husband, Aslan Sarah. You. The girl's frank words made Siegel stunned on the spot. Looking at the stunned Siegel, the girl stood up, walked to the window, and gently pulled the curtains. Father, do you know? Every time I see the scene below, my heart is torn apart. As the girl's words gradually turned into heartache, Siegel reacted and subconsciously pulled the curtains beside her. The next second, Siegel's expression froze. In the bright and spacious glass room, a girl in a white dress with beautiful pink hair and a delicate face was sitting in front of the bed, talking and laughing with an unfamiliar young man lying on the bed. Lux? No, Father, that's not Lux Klein. That's just the clone LH-033. Clone. You guys. Siegel's rationality collapsed on the spot. Ever since the Silver Wind incident, Siegel's rationality had been attacked by hatred. Her rationality, which had improved because of Lux's recovery, was completely destroyed by the existence of the two fake Lux. Although Siegel was a civilian, her tall body still brought a strong visual impact to others. Especially when she was furious, it was even more terrifying. However, before Siegel could pounce in front of the girl, a huge pressure pressed down from the sky and pressed Siegel to the ground. This won't do. Father, you don't have the demeanor of one of the 12 members of the Supreme Council. The girl looked at Siegel, who fell to the ground, and revealed a carefree smile. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.